The Naidime was much closer in age to his students. He fell in love with Koharu and they married in secret and she became pregnant. Her child is kidnapped the day he is born. He grows and becomes Hokage himself. Now she finds her grandson after so many years of thinking her son died. Koharu will help him on his rise. Chapter 1, Prologue, Awakening Bloodlines, and Legacy. The past. Near the beginning of the Second Shinobi War, Kumo territory, a group of shinobi are dashing desperately from tree to tree. They are moving at top speed. The shinobi are merely shadowy figures in the waning light of dusk. They seem to be a rather large group, but that is not very strange considering they are in enemy territory. The shadow in the lead passes through a shaft of light peeking through the trees. It reveals a man in a black bodysuit with traditional samurai-like blue armor with a white ruff of fur that blended with the man's own white hair. He wears a hapori with a spiral leaf symbol on it. It frames his angular face with the 3 red markings, 2 on the cheeks below his red eyes, and 1 on his chin. This was Senju Tobirama, Naidime Hokage of Konohagakure no Sato. Tobirama couldn't believe how bad this had gone. It was supposed to be a peaceful mission to discuss a treaty between Konoha and Kumo. With him he brought his own team as well as one other to be safe. It started out well enough and the Naidime Raikage seemed receptive to the treaty. However, before long the Gold and Silver brothers, Kumo Nuke Nin's Ginkaku and Kinkaku attacked the meeting. In the skirmish that followed, his Akimichi comrade had then accidentally killed 2 members of the Kinkaku squad that the Raikage brought with him. Things could have still been fine, however, just before that, the brothers had managed to kill the Raikage. Sure, he took them with him in an impressive display of Raiden Jutsu, but that was a moot point. Sorrowful at seeing their leader die, the Kinkaku squad grew enraged when the Akimichi accidentally killed their teammates and tried attacking, forcing the Konohanins to flee. Now they are madly dashing trying to get to the border so they will be safe. Through his manipulation of water in the air, Tobirama could feel their pursuers were gaining. They had a lead of 7 kilometers at best, barely 20 minutes at shinobi speeds. Tobirama glanced back at a female figure directly behind him and his eyes flashed with worry. If someone were to stall them and even take a few out, it would buy just enough time for the others to cross the border into Hi-no-Kuni, where the Kinkaku squad dared not follow. The problem was whoever stayed behind would most likely die. And what's more, I am the only one with a hope of pulling it off. Danzo and Hiruzen are not quite at that level yet. Tobirama thought to himself. He then glanced back at the female figure again. She had a determined look on her face as she leapt forward. His eyes showed sorrow as he looked at her. "I'm sorry, Sakakuheim. It looks like I might not be able to see our child grow up," he apologized. He then leapt down into a clearing where he proceeded to crouch down. The other shinobi followed suit, crouching before him. Arranged in a semicircle were 6 other shinobi. The Akimichi had a guilty look on his face as he knew this was all his fault. Next to him was his Uchiha teammate with curly black hair. The last of his team was Shimura Danzo. Danzo was a calculating man with black hair and an X-shaped scar on his chin. The rest were Tobirama's own team. The first was Sarutobi Hiruzen, his most gifted pupil who had earned him the moniker the Professor for his analytical mind and ability in learning ninjutsu. Next was the glasses-wearing Mito Kato Homura. He was neither a terrible or a gifted shinobi. The last of the 6 was Utatane Koharu. She was a beautiful woman with dark blue eyes that seemed to sparkle when she was happy. She dressed in regular kunoichi clothes that accented her figure. She had a perfect hourglass figure with a high C-cup bust. Her dark brown hair was kept pinned up in a bun. Koharu was extremely gifted in genjutsu, but she was no slouch in ninjutsu either. This was due to her father being an Uzumaki and her mother an exiled member of the Kurama clan, giving her the ability to cast very realistic genjutsu while having exceptionally large chakra reserves, somewhere between low to mid-cage. Koharu had grown up an orphan and only discovered her heritage recently, thus her surname Utatane. Tobirama cleared his throat before he spoke. "They are gaining on us. If we don't do anything they will catch us. We need to buy time." He spoke to the younger shinobi. Hiruzen scowled at this. "So one of us will need to stay behind to hold them off," he stated analytically. "Correct, Hiruzen." Tobirama replied. He was about to continue when Hiruzen spoke again. He noticed Danzo seemed like he was struggling to say something as well. "Tobirama-sensei, I volunteer to be the one to stay behind," he said firmly. Danzo didn't seem to like this. "No, Hiruzen, I was going to volunteer to stay, let me do this," he stated with conviction. Before they could begin to argue, Tobirama cut in. "Enough. Neither of you will stay, you don't have the power yet, it will be I that stays," Tobirama said with a tone of finality. There were objections, especially from Koharu, but he ignored them all and simply stated it was his duty as Hokage. Finally he looked at Hiruzen and spoke in a soft voice that held the wisdom he had gained over the years. Saru, you must protect those who have faith in you and who love the village, and train up those to whom you can entrust the next generation. From tomorrow, you are the Hokage, he said. Hiruzen's eyes widened in shock. The other shinobi were sad and wore somber expressions. The one with the most extreme reaction was Koharu. Her eyes first widened in shock, but then tears started to pour down her face and she held a look of slight anger. Most of her comrades were shocked at her reaction, however her teammates understood perfectly. Gathering the other 4 shinobi, Sarutobi ordered them to get going, which they did reluctantly. He then moved to the edge of the clearing and looked over at the last 2 people in it. By now both people had stood up and Koharu's face read shock, hurt, anger, and sorrow all at once as the tears fell from her eyes. She slowly walked forward the few steps it took to reach Tobirama. Once in front of him she slowly raised her hand. Smack! The sound of her hand hitting his cheek resounded through the clearing. Koharu then collapsed against his chest, sobbing uncontrollably. He wrapped his arms gently around her as she continued to cry into his chest. Sob? Why? Why do you sob have to do this? Sob, what about our child? We were supposed to start a family. She wailed. Tobirama now had a single tear running down his face as he continued to hold her close. I'm doing this for our child. If I don't do this they will catch us and kill us all. This is the only way to keep you and the baby safe. Tobirama replied, and that seemed to take the rage out of her as she began hugging him tightly. What will I do without you? What will her child do without a father? She asked almost pleadingly. Deep down she knew this was the only way, but she didn't want it to be. You'll continue on, you will give birth to our child and raise him or her to be a great shinobi. You will help them learn all my techniques. I left them for you in a storage scroll with a blood seal behind my picture in the Hokage office. Tobirama answered. He then gently lifted her chin so she was looking up at him. He leaned down and kissed her gently on the lips. Goodbye, and live well my Sakakuheim illusion princess, he exclaimed before he began to turn around. Before he could leave she grabbed his arm and made him turn around before kissing him fiercely. She finally parted from him and spoke softly. Goodbye Tobi-kun, I will always love you, she whispered softly. He smiled gently at her and then turned around and dashed away towards where he felt the Kinkaku squad closing in. Koharu turned and ran the other direction. She passed Hiruzen on her way out of the clearing and he followed behind her. 10 minutes passed in silence until they felt a massive buildup of chakra and leapt to the top of a tree to see what it was. As they looked out behind them where their lover/sensei was with the Kinkaku squad, they suddenly heard a familiar voice shouting out a technique. It carried across the distance to them. Suten, Hyaku's Waryudan no Jutsu. 1. Tobirama's voice cried as over the treetops a few miles away 100 giant dragons comprised of water with glowing yellow eyes formed. As they stretched above the treetops the dragons hovered menacingly for a few seconds before they finally let loose a set of roars in unison that were heard all the way back in Kumo and made the tree shake from it, before finally they all plunged downwards towards their victims. Tobi-kun always had a flair for the Dr. Dramatic. Koharu half sobbed half giggled as she felt her heart clenching in anguish as tears rolled down her cheeks. That he did, agreed Hiruzen before they both turned and dashed away. 8 months later Koharu would give birth to a baby boy who had the yellow hair of his father's mother, but also the blue eyes of his mother. However, tragedy struck as the child was kidnapped from the maternity ward. But some deity seemed to feel the need to intervene as unforeseen complications forced the kidnapper to leave the child outside the orphanage where he was given a name by the matron in charge, and that name was Namikaze Minato. Konoha. Behind the Hokage monument 28 years later, Namikaze Minato stared across the clearing at his opponent, a masked man with spiky black hair who wore a black cloak. Well Yondaime Hokage, I am waiting, show me what you can do. The man called mockingly. Without hesitation Minato dashed forward and attempted a right cross to the man's face. He was shocked when it simply phased right through him. He quickly squashed the shock and turned around with a spiraling blue orb in the palm of his hand. Rasengan, he cried as he attempted to shove it into the man's gut, however like before it phased right through him. Minato quickly drew a tri-pronged kunai and attempted to slash his foe, yet still it passed through him, but this time the man gripped Minato's wrist. Deciding it may be best to get information Minato spoke to the man as he began an intense barrage of taijutsu. So who are you? He questioned. That is not important right now Yondaime Hokage. The man replied, I'm just curious, you have the Sharingan so you must be an Uchiha, yet I've only known one Uchiha to control the Kyuubi before, Uchiha Madara. Minato replied in an amusing voice as if talking to himself. I was once known by that name. The man replied. He was expecting shock or something, what he got was surprising. Minato halted the furious taijutsu and simply stared blankly at the man, then he began chuckling until it became full-blown laughter. What is so funny? The man asked in annoyance. Ha ha ha, you, Uchiha Madara. That is hilarious, Minato laughed. Your chakra is nothing like his, so give up the charade, although I will admit your chakra is familiar. Minato finished musingly. Meanwhile the masked man was in deep thought. How does he know I am not Madara? How can he know his chakra? The man thought. Minato took advantage of the opening this created by quickly tossing a tri-pronged kunai at the man. As expected, it went through him. However, the next thing that happened was not expected. Minato appeared behind the man in a flash. Before he could react, Minato slammed a Rasengan into the man's right shoulder and the jutsu began to grind away at the man. However, instead of blood, the wound bled some sort of white substance. The man in the cloak was panting now as he felt the injury from the Rasengan. This is not over, Namikaze. I will be back to take the Kyuubi. The man growled as he got sucked into a distortion in the air. Minato sighed in relief before he flashed away to where he left his wife. He was surprised she was still alive after Kyuubi was removed. That's a feat normally only an Uzumaki could boast. Namikaze Mansion. Minato appeared beside his wife, who was in the bed he had left her with their son Naruto. His wife was a beautiful raven-haired woman with onyx black eyes and one raven-colored bang that partially obscured her right eye with another framing her face. Imagine Mikoto with narrower features in the face. That's the best I can come up with to describe how I imagine her. She was currently wearing a maternity dress and holding her son with a gentle smile that betrayed the weariness she felt. This was Uchiha Hitomi, secret daughter of Uchiha Madara. Hitomi saw the telltale flash of her husband's technique, the Hiraishin too. She normally would have looked up, but she didn't for two reasons. First, she was exhausted from having Kyuubi ripped from the seal, and two, she was too busy holding and admiring her son. He had his father's golden-colored hair, but she suspected that it would grow out like her father's. His eyes were her own shade of onyx. Minato gulped at what he was about to do. He hated it, but there was no time to find another candidate. He felt a wave of self-loathing at the burden he was going to place on his son. He was optimistic, not stupid. If the village found out what his son was, they would most likely turn their hatred of Kyuubi onto him. Hitomi-chan, I need Naruto now. I'll bring him back afterwards, Minato said to his wife. Hitomi's eyes swam with tears as she jerked her head to husband. She knew what that meant, and also that the only sealing jutsu he had strong enough for it was the Shiki Fuijin 3, and that would leave him dead, and her life force was slipping away slowly. Perhaps if Tsunade were here it would be different, but she wasn't, so she knew she would die as well, leaving her son alone and vulnerable to the harsh life of a Jinchuriki. Minato, are you certain? Isn't there another way? I don't want our son growing up alone, she cried. She knew it wouldn't change anything, but she didn't want her child to be a Jinchuriki. She had been 5 when the Kyuubi was sealed into her. Her mother was dead and the clan caved to political pressure and banished her, so nobody could accuse them of trying to control the Kyuubi as her father had done. I'm sorry, but there is no time for any other candidate to be found. But don't worry, I will leave behind instructions for Sarutobi-sama to make sure nobody knows of his Jinchuriki status. Only him and the Shinobi Council will know. Minato promised. That set her mind at rest. If only Shinobi knew, then he would be treated fairly, as they weren't as dumb as civilians. I'll be back in 5 minutes, wait here, Minato told her before leaving to leave his instructions via messenger tote. 5 minutes later he came back and helped Hitomi up as he held her gently while she cradled Naruto in her arms. For the first and last time the family embraced inside the Namikaze mansion before they disappeared in a yellow flash of light. 3 hours later, Konoha Council Chambers. Inside the confines of the circular council chamber, the shinobi and elder councils were assembled. Many of the clan heads showed signs of being in battle recently, which they had, the only exceptions being the Yamanaka, Aburame, and Hyuga clan heads, as their skills would have been useless, so they had handled getting the civilians to shelter. They were currently waiting for the Hokage to arrive after calling them here. Finally the large double doors opened and the Sundaime Hokage strolled in carrying a bundle in his arms. The old Kage sighed wearily as he sat down and placed the bundle in front of him. He had yet to adorn his robes again, so he was still in his battle gear with the addition of a simple white haori over top and without his helmet. Sundaime-sama, why are you here and not Minato? Questioned the Nara clan head Nara Shikaku. He was a genius of a man but had the flaw of all Nara men. He was lazy as hell. Shikaku wore his black hair in a pineapple ponytail. He had a goatee and a few scars on his face and wore standard Jonin attire. I am afraid that a little less than 3 hours ago, our beloved Yondaime Hokage Namikaze Minato perished while defeating the Kyuubi. Sarutobi replied in a voice laced with sorrow for the death of a boy who he had seen grow and had become a great friend as well as his successor. He knew this would get very strong reactions from the council. After all, they were all in the same graduating class in the academy. Inuzu Kitsume, a feral-looking beauty, gasped and covered her mouth with her hands as tears began to form in her eyes. She was the Inuzuka clan head. The Abrame clan head Shibi showed no outward reaction, however if one were to look closely they would hear an agitated buzzing as well as seeing his face in an slightly sad expression, an extreme reaction to get from him. The Hyuga clan head Hyuga Hiyashi lost his stoic facade as he felt pain in his heart at hearing one of his very few friends had died. Minato had helped him get over his shyness when he was young, he was like a second brother. His Byakugan unconsciously activated for a brief moment. The heads of the Yamanaka, Akimichi, and Nara clans Yamanaka Ninoiki, Akimichi Kuza, and Nara Shikaku all showed expressions of sadness. Only the Uchiha clan head Uchiha Fugaku showed no reaction to the news. "So you'll be taking up the title of Hokage once more, son Daime-sama?" Shikaku asked. Hiruzen noticed how the crippled Danzo seemed to tense at this. So far the elders had been quiet, although he noticed Koharu had let loose a few tears at the news of Minato dying. She had always liked the young blonde. "I will. However, that is not the most urgent matter now." He replied. "Pray tell, what would the most urgent matter be, Hokage-sama?" asked Hiyashi in confusion, his usual facade back in place. "The method in which Minato defeated the Kyuubi. He sealed it inside a baby, this baby to be exact." Sarutobi answered as he moved aside the top portion of the blanket on the bundle so Naruto's head was revealed. "And why did he choose this child? It is only logical he chose the child for a reason." The stoic Shibi put in. Hiruzen took a breath before giving his answer. "He chose him because this boy is his son." He replied in a neutral tone as he analyzed their reactions. Most seemed unsurprised Minato used his own child for this. "Now we are left with the question, what is to become of the boy?" Hiyashi put in. Almost immediately Danzo spoke. "I move the boy be given to me to be trained." He supplied with an inward grin. As soon as the other elders agreed, as they always did, enough clan heads should also, so that he got his ultimate weapon for root. "As much as I hate to ask it, who agrees or disagrees with this?" Sarutobi asked wearily. He had drawn a similar conclusion as Danzo. Things may indeed have gone that way had Koharu not taken this moment before she voted to glance at the baby. Her heart throbbed painfully in her chest as she beheld the sleeping blonde child. Her mind flashed back to another blonde child long ago. Her eyes grew soft and she knew she could not subject this child to the teachings of Danzo. Slowly she raised her hand to vote. I disagree with Danzo's proposal." She finally managed to get out. Homura and Hiruzen looked to their teammate in shock while Danzo looked at her with a hidden rage. As soon as they saw her expression, her teammates realized why she chose that, and their hearts softened as they too remembered the child she lost so long ago, as well as how heartbroken she was when he was taken. "It took her years to recover." "I disagree as well," Homura said with certainty. Slowly the votes were cast and only the Uchiha clan had agreed. "Well, now that this is taken care of, I suggest we all go home to rest," Hiruzen said in relief. He got many grumbled agreements as the council slowly trickled out, but not before he reminded them of the S-rank status of this information. The very next day Uzumaki Naruto was admitted to the orphanage. Hiruzen chose this name in remembrance of his sensei Hashirama's wife Uzumaki Mito. A few months after the attack, word leaked out from an unknown source that Naruto was a Jinchuriki. Hiruzen knew damn well that it was Danzo trying another way to get Naruto. However, Danzo miscalculated. After they heard that the entire Shinobi Council as well as the other two elders held no concerns about the seal and thought the boy was harmless and held complete faith in the Yondaime's Fuinjutsu skills, they settled for cold indifference. They would not let their children interact with him for fear of him losing control. But they never showed any signs of hatred except for the occasional shop owner refusing service because they were one of the 2% that disliked him. However, that attempt made Hiruzen wonder, Jinchuriki or no, why in the world did Danzo want him that badly? It would not be for another 6 years until Hiruzen had his answer, and it was one that would make him and the other elders and Shinobi Council forever suspicious of Danzo. Time skip, 6 years, dusk, streets of Konoha. A 6-year-old boy dressed in a black shirt with a red swirl, tan shorts and black sandals was rushing through the streets. The boy had spiky blonde hair and a bang that went to his eyebrow over his right eye. His eyes were onyx black and he had 6 whisker marks on his cheeks. This was Uzumaki Naruto, Jinchuriki of the Kyuubi. Currently he was trying to get back to the orphanage before the sun set completely. The matron there always got very worried when he in particular showed up after dark. He never knew why. Of course, unknown to him, it was because she worried one day one of those few who thought of him as the demon brat would go beyond simple raising store prices and name-calling behind his back. He had been in the library studying everything he could on shinobi as a civilian, and the other half doing physical training, and he had accidentally went too long. If you hadn't guessed, Naruto wanted to be a shinobi. He had ever since he could first understand speech and what words meant, which was at the age of 3. Ever since then he had been told by the matron stories of shinobi. She was older than the Sun Daime, so she had lived through 2.5 shinobi wars and told him stories of all the famous shinobi, from Uchiha Izuna and Madara, to their counterparts the Senju brothers Hashirama and Tobirama, to the legendary clashes in speed between the Yondaime Reikage and the Yondaime Hokage Namikaze Minato, who she had named herself, before either had become Kages. All these stories filled him with wonder. He even listened avidly to stories of the other Kages and famous ninjas from the other great villages. However, out of all the shinobi he only felt a real pull for some reason towards 4 of them. Those were Uchiha Madara, Senju Hashirama, and Tobirama, and Namikaze Minato. As he rushed through the streets he came across a strange sight. A man was creeping through the shadows with what looked like a tied-up bundle of cloth. On closer inspection he found it to be a girl his age who appeared to be knocked out. Before he could think it through he shouted out at the man, "Oi asshat! What are you doing with that girl?" he shouted out loudly. Where did he learn that word, you may ask? Simple. He once heard one of the Chunin that guard the village gates call a fellow shinobi that when he laughed at him and his partner for getting the unfortunate duty of guarding the gate, again. He had no idea what it meant, but it sounded good. The man who was dressed in standard shinobi gear froze while thinking 2 things. Shit, I've been caught, and did that Gaki just use the word asshat? How the fuck does he know that word? At this point in time Naruto began to regret his loud shout because he realized maybe shouting out loudly and alerting the unknown shinobi wasn't the best idea. He was proven correct when the man slowly put down the girl and then began to look at him in a slightly threatening/saddened way. He couldn't allow him to live, and he didn't particularly like having to kill a kid. "Well, for what it's worth, I am sorry you saw me, Gaki. You were in the wrong place at the wrong time. I will try to make this painless as possible," he said in a slightly remorseful voice. With that he took out a kunai and threw it at Naruto, who dodged it barely. The man ignored that and was already rushing at him so fast he could only barely see him. Of course it wasn't as fast as the man could go, but he didn't feel like using full speed, so he settled for low Jonin instead of his usual mid Jonin. The 30 yards separating them was closing fast. Naruto began to panic when he saw the man rushing through hand seals and heard the man shout his technique as he continued towards him. "Raiten, John. 4, he cried as a thin lightning bolt shot from his hands towards Naruto. What would happen next would be the shock of his life. For Naruto, he saw the man complete the hand seals and then the technique was announced and he saw the lightning coming towards him. His heart was beating triple time on adrenaline. He knew that it was over. He would never be a shinobi, never be a legend like the Yondaime. Then something strange happened. Time seemed to slow down. He saw the lightning coming in slow motion, then slower. He moved his head to the side so that the lightning would miss him. It worked and the lightning passed by him. Then his hands moved of their own accord and clasped into a prayer-like position. At this point the shinobi was almost upon him, barely 3 feet away. Suddenly a wooden post shot upwards from the ground and slammed into the man's gut harder than a punch from the Sun Daime's summon enma. Not before he managed to put a kunai in the boy's shoulder. Blood spewed from his mouth as he saw blackness closing in on the edges of his vision. The shinobi let out a small chuckle. He. Beaten by a Gaki, cough troublesome. He laughed. Meanwhile all the males in a certain lazy clan sneezed at the same time. At this point he passed out. Not even 10 seconds later Naruto's vision got blurry as the adrenaline left his system and his hands fell to his sides as he felt the pain of the kunai and he started to tip backwards. The last thing he saw was a white Anbu mask with a pair of blood-red eyes with 3 black tomoe in them and silver hair. Meanwhile the Anbu that caught him glanced over to their partners as they picked up the girl and the shinobi respectively. 10 minutes earlier, with Anbu Squad 7. Anbu Squad 7, led by Inu and consisting of Inu, Tora, and Karasu, was conducting their routine sweep of the village. So far everything was quiet, that is until they got close to the clan areas of the village. They saw a flash that they recognized as being the result of a lightning jutsu. They quickly moved towards the source and alighted upon a rooftop overlooking the street. What they saw shocked them. There was a blonde-haired boy that one of them recognized as she'd been one of the Anbu assigned to guard him early in his life when there was fear people may try to kill him, and a Kumo shinobi with a Hyuga girl tied up on the other end of the street. That wasn't what had them shocked. No, it was the wooden tendril sticking out of the ground that had slammed into the gut of the Kumo ninja. Snapping out of her shock, Inu spoke to her subordinates. Tora, get the girl. Karasu, secure the enemy shinobi. I will catch the boy as he looks like he is gonna collapse, she ordered before shooting off and catching the boy as he fell. Karasu and Tora appearing as well to take care of their assigned duties. Inu caught Naruto as he fell and held him close to her. She looked at him in concern as he closed his eyes. She gently removed the kunai before standing up and holding him bridal style. Tora returned the girl to the Hyuga compound. Karasu, take the prisoner to D&I and then inform Hokage-sama of what has happened. Inform him I am taking Naruto to the hospital and will stay with him. Do not mention the use of what I shall tell him myself when he comes to see Naruto. Inu ordered. Hi Takeo. They replied as all three shined away for their respective tasks. With Naruto, Mindscape. Naruto groaned as he awoke. He had a really bad headache. He sat up slowly as he took in his surroundings. He was in some hallway with walls made of stones, and wooden floors, like a castle with wooden floors. He got up slowly and saw that there were two different wires along the wall that were as thick as his arm. One was blue and the other was red. For some reason he felt the urge to follow them, so he did. He kept walking through the large halls following the wires, until finally he came to a large set of double doors made of some sort of black wood with intricate designs carved into it with vines and such. The doors were 3 times as tall as his height of 3 feet 8 inches. He slowly placed his hands on the doors and pushed them. He expected them to be hard to open, but they weren't. The doors swung open with a crash as they settled into place against the walls. He strode forward into the room in complete awe. The room was a gigantic throne room-like hall. The floor was wood like the rest of the place. The far wall was not so much a wall as gigantic wooden gates with a giant piece of paper with some kanji on it. There was a set of shallow steps leading up to a raised area in front of the gate. There was a figure standing in front of the gate. He started making his way across the hall. Once he was almost to the steps, he saw the figure had long raven-colored hair that fell to the mid-back. He spoke for the first time since entering this place. Hello, where am I? Who are you? He asked timidly. The person spoke as they turned around. Hello Naruto, I've been waiting a long time. They stated. Why you're? Naruto managed to stutter out as he recognized the person from some of the stories his Jiji told him. Hi, I am with the Hokage, after visiting the hospital. Sarutobi Hiruzen cursed under his breath at the situation at hand. He had visited Naruto many times over the years, to check up on him and see how he was doing, and whenever he took him to get a meal he would tell the boy stories of his senseis, as the matron, an old friend of his, told him Naruto loved to learn about the Senju brothers as well as Uchiha Madara and Namikaze Minato, so he would tell him some of the personal stories he knew of the four. Over that time he had grown to think of Naruto as his grandson, and he even called him Jiji. Right now he was faced with a situation involving his surrogate grandson who was still unconscious at the hospital. He vaguely wondered at how both father and son had a habit of messing up Kumo's plans. It was almost like it was a family tradition, if only he knew. But that was not the thing that mattered right now. No, it was one simple question. How did Naruto use Makuten 5? This was going to cause a lot of paperwork. Damn you Minato for dying and not telling me how you did all the paperwork, he muttered while shooting a glare at the picture of the grinning blonde behind his desk. He had sent for his old teammates so they could maybe find out how Naruto could use the Makuten. They were expected to arrive any time now. Right on cue, a knock was heard outside his door. Come in, he called as he pulled out his pipe and began to pack tobacco into it before lighting it and taking a short drag. His 2 teammates walked in. Makoto Homura now had gray hair and a beard whilst wearing his same glasses. He was dressed in plain robes most people their age did. It was his female teammate that he was always surprised at, though just like him and Homura she was in her late 50s, he swore she only looked 7 years older than when she had her son at 29. She was dressed in a simple black kimono with her hair held up in its usual style using the hairpins that had been a gift from their sensei. They sat down in the chairs in front of his desk, and as soon as she was settled Koharu asked the question on both their minds. Why the late wake-up call, Hiruzen? I need my beauty sleep. How do you think I stay this youthful? She asked playfully. Meanwhile, a certain green-clad jonin sneezed. I was under the impression you had found the fountain of youth and kept it to yourself, he replied in an amused tone before he became serious. The reason I called you here is because something very important has happened, he began, the other two turning completely serious. A few hours ago Onbu Squad 7 saw a flash that usually means a lightning jutsu was used. They hurried to the scene to find Hyuga Hinata tied up and asleep and the Kumo shinobi running at Uzumaki Naruto as if to attack. Before they could interfere, Naruto knocked out the shinobi, but not before being injured by a kunai. Afterwards he collapsed and was caught by Inu. The squad proceeded to take the captured shinobi to Tendai, the Hyuga heiress, to her compound, and Naruto to the hospital. He informed them. The two looked shocked at the boy knocking out what had to be a Kumo jonin, but that wasn't reason enough to summon only them. Hiruzen, what are you leaving out? Homura asked. Sarutobi sighed before answering. I left out how he knocked him out, for that was the most important. It appears that Naruto awakened the Makuten and created a shaft to slam into the Kumo shinobi's stomach, he stated resignedly. Homura's face showed shock, that he expected, but when he looked to Koharu, her expression was blank. almost as if she was processing the information and then flashing back to a memory. In fact she was remembering one of the many conversations with her secret lover/husband. And the author said let there be a flashback. And there was. Koharu and Tobirama were snuggling together inside his compound on the couch, talking about his clan. "I don't get it, Tobi-kun, how come your brother could use Makuten but you can't?" she asked in confusion. "He and I had many conversations as to why that might be, eventually we came to a conclusion." He started. "And?" she asked in frustration. He chuckled before answering. "And the conclusion was that it was a trait all Senju carried, as we found out from blood work done on myself. However, even though it was a Kekkei Genkai, it hadn't settled yet like the Sharingan and Byakugan. In the end we theorized that it would not start to appear for another couple generations, but even if it appears in our grandchildren it would most likely be in only one," he explained. At that Koharu snuggled into his chest deeper and held on more tightly. "Maybe it will be our grandchild, Tobi-kun?" she asked contently. Tobirama chuckled lightly at this. "Who knows, maybe. It would certainly give me bragging rights once we meet in the afterlife. I could shove it in his face it was my grandkid that awakened it and not his," he exclaimed childishly. Koharu giggled at his antics. And the author said let the flashback end. And it did. Koharu couldn't get her hopes up. She stood up and Hiruzen and Homer looked at her. They had been tossing around ideas for how Naruto had Makuten for the past 5 minutes since she had zoned out. "Koharu?" Sarutobi asked in confusion. "Hiruzen, please excuse me, I must check something. It shouldn't take too long. Meet me at Naruto's hospital room in an hour," she said as she walked out of the room and then shunshine to her house, get a syringe and extract a vial of blood quickly, before she once again used a shunshine to appear in the lobby of the hospital. Once there she immediately found out where Naruto was and hurried to the room. She was happy to see the doctor just closing the door to his room. Walking up to him she spoke. "Excuse me, you are the doctor of Uzumaki Naruto?" she asked kindly. The man recognized her as one of the elders and gave her a short bow of the head before answering. "Hi, I am. What can I do for you, Koharu-sama?" he asked. She held up the vial of blood. "Compare this to his own please and give me the results in 45 minutes, that should be plenty of time," she replied as she handed him the blood. He nodded. The request was reasonable. Before he left he asked curiously, "Forgive me, but who exactly does this blood belong to?" "Myself," she answered simply. The doctor's eyes widened in realization of why it was so important it was soon. He hurried away to do the test, leaving Koharu to wait impatiently. Unknown location. Deep under Konoha, a bandaged figure sat behind a desk in a darkened room with a white masked figure in kneeling him. "What is it, Fu?" he asked in curiosity. Danzo-sama asked for any developments with Uzumaki Naruto. "There has been one," the now revealed Fu replied. "What has happened?" "Uzumaki has awakened the Makuten," Fu answered. Danzo's eye widened. This wasn't good. If Sarutobi were to figure out who he was, he may be forced to flee Konoha. "I see. Gather 20 of my most experienced root. Have them prepare Operations Exodus and Chimera immediately," he ordered. The root ninja nodded and shunshined to complete the task. "Better be safe than sorry," Danzo muttered to himself. With Koharu, at the hospital, Koharu was leaning on the wall in Naruto's room staring at the boy intently. It was this scene her two teammates walked in on. Homura had accompanied Hiruzen when he came to meet Koharu at the hospital because he was worried for his teammate. When they arrived and saw her staring at Naruto intently, seemingly in deep thought, his worry increased. "Koharu, why did you request we meet here?" Hiruzen asked. "Wait until the test results come back, then I will explain," she told him, barely acknowledging their presence. Luckily at that time the doctor came back and handed her the test results on the clipboard before bowing to the other two and leaving. Koharu stared at the results of the test, her eyes widened in shock as tears welled in her eyes. They spilled down her cheeks as she slowly smiled. "Koharu, what was the test for, and what does it say?" he asked, concerned by her reaction. She said nothing, just dropped the clipboard and walked over to Naruto's bedside, where sat down in the chair next to it and took his hand gently while beginning to stroke his hair. In exasperation Hiruzen looked down at the clipboard and his eyes widened as he understood. "I can't believe it!" he exclaimed. "Mindscape. Hi, I am Konoha's Karasu no Oho 6, Uchiha Hitomi. It's nice to meet you, Sochi," Hitomi said with a smile as she turned around completely and smiled warmly at him. What did you say?" he asked in disbelief. "No way, the Karasu no Ujo was his mother, right?" "I said it's nice to meet you finally, Sochi," she replied in amusement as she made her way down the steps to stand in front of him before kneeling down and hugging him tightly. "Are you really my Kasan?" he asked timidly as a few tears fell from his eyes. "Yes I am, and I am so sorry I couldn't be there for you," Hitomi answered as she wiped his tears away and kissed him on the forehead. With that he hugged her back and snuggled into her shoulder. She soothed him by rubbing his back gently as he was racked with sobs of joy. Once he had calmed down they were sitting cross-legged across from each other. "Where are we, and how are you here, Ka-san?" "Not that I'm not happy, but I was told that you died the night the QB attacked, the night I was born," he asked as he wiped away the last of his tears. "Well, as for the where, we are in your mindscape, and as for the how, that requires a small story first, so sit back and get comfortable," Hitomi told him with a smile. Once she saw he was paying attention she giggled at the expectant expression he had. "First I will explain some things I want you to know. The first is I want you to know what a Jinchuriki is. A Jinchuriki is a person who has a Baiju sealed into them. They are the scroll that holds the kunai, the jailer to the jailed. They are neither the kunai or the prisoner. Jinchuriki protect their villages every single day by holding the Baiju they carry." Now before I say the next bit, do you understand so far? Hitomi finished with a question. Naruto gave a nod in response. "Okay, now you understand that. I want you to know I am the former Jinchuriki of the Kyubi no Kitsune, and you are its current Jinchuriki host. Your father was forced to seal it into you on the day of your birth," she told him seriously. Naruto's eyes widened and then he put his head down. He then spoke in a voice so low she almost couldn't hear it. "Was there any other choice besides sealing it in me?" he asked, hoping the answer was no. "There was only one other option, let it destroy the entire village including you. If there was any option in which you didn't have it sealed in you and the village survived, we would have taken it. We loved you with all our hearts, Sochi, and it broke them to have to make that choice," she replied softly as she leaned forward and hugged him for a few seconds. He wiped the tears away before a thought suddenly occurred to him. "Wait a second, if my father was the one that sealed the QB into me, then that means my father was..." He stopped abruptly as the thought sunk in. "Hi, your father was the Kiroi Senko 7, the Ondaime Hokage Namikaze Minato," she said with a smile as she remembered all the times with Minato. "Now we have that out of the way, the only thing left is to explain the bloodline limit of our clan, the Uchiha, which is how I am here. First I will explain that we are pure-blooded Uchiha. The difference is significant. You see, some time after the war between the Uchiha and Senju clans started, there were only a few of each left. So they both used a blood ritual to create half-blooded Uchiha and Senju. Their Sharingan in the Uchiha's case, and potent and special chakra in the Senju's case, were significantly weaker," she said as a beginning. Getting a nod of understanding she went on. "Now we are pure-blooded because Uchiha Madara, who is the last pure-blooded Uchiha, therefore the last true Uchiha elite, was my father, so that mantle fell to me, and now you, making you technically the rightful clan heir due to the Uchiha laws," she explained, getting wide eyes from him. "Now there are 5 stages to the Sharingan, the initial 3 and the last 2 the Mangekyo stages. In the first 3 stages you get a Tomoe in each eye for the level you're at, 1 to 3. In these stages you get increased perceptive ability, and ability to see chakra as well as see through genjutsu and copying abilities. In the final 3 Tomoe stage your perception is so great you gain true prediction of an opponent's moves, you can copy any nin, gen, or taijutsu, see through and break any genjutsu that is not a Sharingan-born one, see the vague outline of an opponent's chakra network, and finally cast genjutsu with only your eyes, including some exclusive to the Sharingan. These are all the abilities of the first 3 stages, understand?" she finished, glancing at him to ensure he understood, which he did. She realized that he understood perfectly. What it meant was he was genius, a prodigy. Her baby boy was a genius. Even more so than Mikoto's child Itachi. "Okay, now the Mangekyo stages and their abilities, and the difference between pure and half-blood Mangekyo users," she began, waiting for his nod of understanding. "The first of the final 2 stages, or Mangekyo stages, is the Mangekyo Sharingan. To gain this, a half-blood must either fell the guilt of their best friend's death, or kill them themselves. A pureblood can gain it through rigorous training or a life-and-death situation, just like the initial stages. The abilities of this are 3 special techniques unique to the Sharingan. The first technique is Amaterasu, black flames as hot as the sun that can't be extinguished and can burn for 7 days and 7 nights. The second technique is the nearly unbreakable Genjutsu Tsukuyomi. I would say unbreakable, but there is one thing that can break it, and that is another Mangekyo Sharingan. Anything less and it's useless to try. In Tsukuyomi you can control space and time, you are God. You can keep your opponent there for 3 days and 3 nights, and it is only seconds in the outside world. The final technique is the impenetrable armor Susanoo. With this ability an astral figure appears around you and protects from all attacks. It is also a very destructive offense. All Mangekyo users have a different Susanoo that carry various tools. Now this is the last ability that all Mangekyo users have, pure blood or not, it doesn't matter, understand?" she questioned at the end. Getting another nod, she began to speak once more. Now here are the differences between the two. Half-bloods gain another ability that will either be the space-time jutsu Kamue, or the ultimate genjutsu Kodo Amatsukami. The trade-off however is twofold. First, they slowly go blind while using the first stage, and second, to advance they must take the eyes of another Mangekyo user. Now a pure blood however will not gain either ability in the first stage. What they do get is no blindness and also being able to clearly see an opponent's chakra network, so well that similar to the Byakugan they can vaguely see the tenketsu points of their opponent and can advance to the next stage through training or life or death situations. Now when you get to the final stage, the eternal Mangekyo Sharingan, the prowess with all the Mangekyo abilities increases, perfect control of Amaterasu, being able to keep the opponent in Tsukuyomi for 7 days and nights, and a Susanoo is easier to form. A pure blood will also gain perfect perception of Tenketsu and also both the Kamui and Kodo Amatsukami. This is all there is to the Sharingan to my knowledge. She finished. Naruto kept a blank expression at the end. She began to worry until, "Our bloodline is awesome," Naruto shouted in excitement. Hitomi couldn't help but laugh along with him for a little bit. "Okay, we get to the point of that. Abilities of my EMS are what allowed me to do this. I combined aspects of both its genjutsu techniques to give me a total of 7 days and nights to see you once you awaken the first stage of the Sharingan. Speaking of which, how did you awaken it so young?" she asked at the end. "Oh, I saw some asshat kidnapping a girl and awakened it when he threw a damn lightning jutsu at me," he replied simply. That turned him a bop on the head. "Language, young man. Speaking of, how did you learn that type of language?" she asked in annoyance. "Oh, those 2 gate guards that have been there since forever," he answered. "Izumo and Kotetsu. I'd skin those idiots if I could, teaching my Sochi that kind of language," she growled as Naruto's sweat dropped. "Anyways, I have 7 days and nights in here to train you to advance your Sharingan to the 2nd level and also help you learn if not master the basic katas of the Uchiha Taijutsu style, the Interceptor Fist," she said as she grew a sadistic grin. Outside Mindscape, after Koharu drops the clipboard. "I don't believe it, but how?" Sarutobi exclaimed as he saw the sentence circled in red. "Test result positive, familial DNA match. Most likely relation, grandmother." Homura at this point gasped as he looked over Hiruzen's shoulder and saw the same thing. "Danzo, that is how?" Koharu growled from where she was. "It was he who told me my son A had been kidnapped. He also always had an interest in the possibility of another Senju awakening the Makuten. It's clear now that something went wrong and either he or whoever he had do it was forced to leave him at the orphanage, where he was named Namikaze Minato, and proceeded to grow up to become one of the deadliest ninja ever, even without his father's techniques or even knowledge of where he came from," she said through teeth gritted in bitterness. She was bitter at never knowing her son, bitter that she had met and interacted with him without even knowing. She also felt grief at his death 100 times what it was when he was simply the nice boy she had seen grown up in the village. She felt sorrow for never getting to be at his wedding, or any of his birthdays, but most of all she felt tremendous grief, sorrow and heartbreak because her son had died, probably having wondered who he was, where he came from, and whether his parents had abandoned him because they didn't want him, and if they loved him at all. If she could speak to him right now, she would tell him all she wanted to tell him right now. She would tell him how much she and his father had looked forward to him coming into his world. How his father loved him so much he gave his life just so he could be born. That his father would be the proudest father in the world if he had been alive. She had told him of the baby room she had made for him over 6 months before he was born, and never been able to change it. There was still the painted water effects on the walls and ceiling. His first toys, the plushie versions of his father's famous sword and Tobirama's summons, also his first clothes, a baby version of his father's shinobi outfit, all of which she made herself. She would have told him how proud she was that he went so far on his own without having the guidance he should have had. Most importantly, how much she loved him. She shook her head and rid herself of those thoughts. She wiped away the tears as she looked at her grandson. She had missed 6 years of his life. Well, no more. I will make sure he is everything I never got to give to his father. All the love and guidance. She thought with a smile, one she hadn't worn for over 30 years, the same one she wore when she held Minato for the first time. Her musings were interrupted by Hiruzen. "What I don't understand is how you knew he was your grandson. For all you knew, he could have been." He was cut off before he could finish since she knew what he would ask. "I remembered a conversation with Tobi-kun after I told him I was pregnant. He told me he and his brother had studied the Makuten and concluded that it was a Kekkei Genkai that had yet to settle, and that if it was going to, it would be in their grandchildren, most likely only one out of any they had would gain it," she explained. Tsunade and Nawaki were Hashirama-sensei's only grandchildren, leaving only one possibility. Ha ha ha. We even joked of how he would love to be able to rub it in Hashirama's face in the afterlife, that it was his grandchild that awakened it and not Hashirama's, she said as she chuckled at the memory. She then turned serious as she looked at Hiruzen with a hardened gaze. Danzo cannot get away with this. I want his head on a platter for what he has done to my family, she said with conviction. Before he could respond, Homura put in his opinion. I agree, Hiruzen. He had a hand in the kidnapping of a major clan heir as well as a Hokage's son. If that is not high treason, I don't know what is, he exclaimed passionately. Minato had been his sensei's heir, the last thing left of him, and he along with Hiruzen and Koharu had wanted to teach him when he was old enough. Hiruzen simply let out a weary sigh. I completely concur. I have looked the other way on many things over the years, allowed him to get away with far too much. However, this, instead of being final straw that broke the camel's back, is the tree branch that cut it in half. He will be shown no mercy. Come down, all Anbu in the village as well as shinobi shall know it is open season on Danzo and his route, Hiruzen declared with a tone of finality. He subtly motioned one of his Anbu guards to go begin relaying that message. Koharu nodded in content. That was more than she expected. He didn't even question her judgment on who was guilty for a second. He had always gone to the extremes to ignore his childhood friend's wrongdoing. But it appeared this was too much to handle, a betrayal too many. After all, Hiruzen had been Minato's godfather. Speaking of which, she should probably get him to track down that blasted perverted Sannin Jiraiya to come back and help Naruto to get a start in Fuinjutsu, and maybe let him sign his father's personal jutsu, the Rasengan, as well as signing the Toad contract. She sensed a movement next to her and looked up to see Naruto shaking his head slowly before slowly his eyes opened and he sat up and looked around. The first thing he saw when he woke up from his mother's training, was a pretty lady who looked to be in her late 30s sitting next to him holding his hand. The way she looked at him was the same way his mother looked at him. It was love, the love of family. Who are you? He asked curiously. Koharu smiled at him as she hugged him real quick before leaning back while holding his shoulders. I am Koharu, and I have waited 34 years to meet you, my grandson, she said in a voice full of warmth and love. He instantly knew this must be his father's mother. His Ka-san told him hers was dead. Why'd you abandon my father? Naruto asked with slight anger, but also sadness. He wanted family, but not if it was the kind to abandon family because they were inconvenient. Hiruzen and Homura had their eyes widen as they knew he must know who his father was, but how? Koharu gave him a teary smile as she had an inkling of how. After all, mothers would do anything for their children. I never abandoned him. He was stolen from the hospital the day he was born. I only got to hold him once before that. It was not until tonight I ever knew who he was and that he had lived past the night in this very village. I realized after hearing you awakened his father's clan's dormant bloodline. She told him. At first he thought she meant his Sharingan, but then discarded that theory as he knew the Uchiha was his mother's clan, so what was his father's bloodline? Then he remembered the last thing he did before passing out, creating the wood. Like Shodai-sama. He thought as realized which clan she meant. Koharu took note of the flash of realization in his eyes. So he realized what clan I meant from him using wood. My grandson is a genius like his father and grandfather, eh? She mused to herself. So you mean that my father was from the Senju clan? He exclaimed. Not just any Senju, his father, my husband, was Senju Tobirama. She answered with a smile at his excitement. Holy shit. I'm the grandson of Uchiha Madara and Senju Tobirama too? Sweet, I'm pure-blood Uchiha and Senju, I practically reek of awesomeness, he shouted with childish excitement. Hiruzen face-palmed at Naruto, revealing what he had classified as ISS rank secret when it came to who his mother's father was. To a room with 3 of his personal Anbu as well as Homura, Koharu already knew she was one of Hitomi's inspirations and had taken a liking to the girl and taught a lot about genjutsu. I will have you know that is an SS rank secret. He called to his Anbu mostly. Homura probably already figured as much. He then turned to Naruto. Speaking of, how did you find out an SS rank secret, Naruto? I'm listening closely. He questioned. Koharu smirked at Hiruzen's discomfort. Seems getting under his skin ran in the family. She got a kick out of it, and she was almost certain Minato did as well, and she was certain Naruto did, judging by how he was chuckling. I can guess, knowing that cheeky girl, your mother used her advanced Sharingan, didn't she? She asked in amusement. Naruto nodded furiously, still wearing a grin. Yep, she did it so she could torture me. She said it was to tell me of my Uchiha heritage and help advance my Sharingan and train me in the Uchiha Taijutsu, but I say it was torture. He explained childishly, which wasn't that strange since he was a child. Koharu chuckled as she remembered training his mother to help her advance into the Mangekyo stages. I see, I assume she told you everything, including your tenant? Hiruzen asked resignedly. He got a vigorous nod. Yep, she told me about Fuzzbutt, and that I'm the true Uchiha clan heir. He replied. The first part made him facepalm at the boy's nickname for an entity that could destroy villages, and then he dropped his jaw at the last one. WHWH what? He asked. Like I said, I am the Uchiha clan heir. It's in their laws, as long as there is a pure blood Uchiha they are the heir, and no half-blood can be the heir. All those supposed Uchiha elites are nothing but pretenders, shams, knockoffs, commoners playing at king. Naruto clarified. All the other occupants of the room snickered at that. They had all heard that the Uchiha boast about being elites, and how they were superior because of it. To hear that to their own clan laws they were all considered inferior Uchiha, was hilarious. Koharu laughed loudly at Naruto's statement. She then stood up and picked him up with her, getting a yelp of protest. Come on, we are going home so you can rest. Tomorrow we will go get anything you need from the orphanage, and then go shopping for clothes and equipment so that we can begin your training. You have 2 years before the academy and I am not letting them go to waste, she declared happily. Naruto grinned at this and hugged her. You're the best Ba-chan, he cried happily. Koharu smiled at hearing him call her that. Hiruzen and Homura watched them leave until something dawned on them. She's gonna teach him all her genjutsu, isn't she? Hiruzen asked wearily. Yep. Homura replied simply. Jiraiya is so fucked when he meets him if Naruto has her dislike of perverts, isn't he? Hiruzen asked. Got that right. Homura deadpanned. Hiruzen hung his head at that. He knew he should have beat the pervy out of Jiraiya when he had a chance. Unknown location. Danzo opened his single eye slowly as he sensed Fu Shunshine in front of him. He looked down at the root ninja. He had a hunch what this was about. Report. It is as you expected. Hokage-sama has declared that at dawn it will become open season on yourself and Root. Orders Danzo-sama? Fu finished with a question. Launch operations Chimera and Exodus immediately. He ordered with finality. Hi, it shall be as you wish Danzo-sama. Fu declared. Chapter 2, Shopping and Training, Academy begins, and Massacre. There can be only one. Koharu's mansion. Next day. Naruto woke up to the unusual sensation of an extremely comfortable bed. He scrunched his closed eyes tight in confusion. Comfy bed? His bed at the orphanage was old and worn, not comfy. He then recalled the dream he had last night. He found out his parents were the Karasu no Ujo and the Kiroi Senko, and his grandfathers were Uchiha Madara and Senju Tobirama. His Ba-chan on his father's side was alive and she took him to live with her, and she was going to train him for the next couple years before the academy. Too bad it was just a dream. Although there was the fact his bed was softer than he remembered. He sat up and opened his eyes and blinked once, twice, thrice. Yep, there it was, he was in a luxurious queen-sized bed. The room he was in had fancy walls and other stuff that belonged in a mansion. Then it hit him. Holy crap, it wasn't a dream, he shouted. His cry attracted the house's other occupant who was dressed already. She stepped into the doorway and looked at him. What wasn't a dream, Naruto-chan? Koharu asked in confusion. You, my parents, my grandfathers. I thought it was all a dream. He explained. Koharu gained a look of understanding. Ah, well I assure you, it was no dream, Naruto-chan. You live with me from now on and I will be training you in all the various techniques left by your grandfather. She replied with a warm smile. Naruto jumped out of the bed and rushed over to her and hugged her around the waist while repeatedly thanking her. Tears of joy were leaking from his eyes. Koharu smiled as she knelt down and lifted his chin to look into her eyes. She wiped his tears away while smiling before she spoke. Naruto-chan, you never need to thank me for doing what any good grandparent should. Had I known who you were, you would never have gone to that orphanage. Duties as an elder be damned, I would have raised you. But for now I will make up for lost time, starting in a half hour. First we are going to go eat a quick breakfast, then go shopping, then the part you are probably looking forward to most, your first taste of shinobi training. She told him with a warm smile as she hugged him close to her. Soon enough they broke apart and headed to the kitchen. They ate quickly, then headed out for a shinobi store owned by a friend of Koharu. Higurashi Shinobi Store. Koharu walked into the Higurashi Shinobi Store holding her grandson's hand. She watched in amusement as he looked around in wonder at all the different shinobi gear on display. Go ahead and look around, Naruto-chan. See if you can find some clothes you like. If you choose wisely, I might get you a special gift for your training. She told him. His eyes widened and he grinned before dashing away from her to go look at cloths. Koharu nodded in approval when she saw him looking at mostly black and gray clothing that was durable. She then turned and walked up to the counter where a large muscular man was waiting at the register. He had a unique hairstyle and facial hair, think Hugh Jackman in X-Men. Hello Kota, it's good to see you, she said cheerily. Good day Koharu-sama, who's the gaki over there giving the stink eye to my merchandise? He asked in amusement. Koharu looked back and sweat dropped when she saw Naruto was indeed glaring at an orange jumpsuit as if wishing for the monstrosity to combust. Then they heard him mutter to himself. "What kind of dumbass ninja wears that thing?" he asked in rhetorical disgust. Kota chuckled as he did agree with the boy. It was meant to be delivered to a civilian clothing store but was given to him on accident, whereas the black combat jacket and matching pants he ordered went to the civilians. Smart Gaki, realizing that it has no business being on a ninja. Again, who is he? I'm curious because he looks like a mini-me of Minato. Strange thing is he has Hitomi's eyes. He mused. Koharu didn't react. It figured Kota would figure it out. He was Minato and Hitomi's teammate. She figured he might as well be the first to know. "He is my grandson, I only found out yesterday," she replied. Kota's eyes flashed in triumph as his assumptions were correct. Now to settle one more theory. "Tell me, this wouldn't happen to have any connection to the witch hunt on Danzo and his disbanded route, would it?" he asked in barely restrained rage. He never trusted Danzo when he was in Anbu, and to see he might have had something to do with his teammate and best friend not having a family, well, let's just say he was contemplating gathering some root and using them as dummies while teaching his daughter how to throw kunai and shuriken. Koharu's lips quirked as she guessed what he was thinking. "It does," she answered simply. I think I'll get some new dummies for Tenten's target practice this evening," he said. "Very good, now I need all the items on this list please. And if you don't mind, I'd also like this," she told him as she wrote down something extra on the list. Kota looked at it and smiled. "Very well, I will get it, shouldn't be even 15 minutes," he replied as he left to get the desired objects. Koharu rambled over to the books and looked at them, an idea slowly forming as she looked at them more. "Yes, that should give him a great advantage if I'm right, which I'm sure I am," she thought as she got all the books required for academics and theory for all 5 years in the academy. She then took them to the counter just as Kota came back with the item she asked for. At this time Naruto came up as well. In his arms he had several high-collared black shirts similar to a Uchiha's. Besides that he had dark gray shorts and black ninja sandals as well as several equipment pouches. Koharu nodded in approval. It was perfect for a ninja in training his age. "Very good Naruto-chan, I will get that special gift for you," she complimented and smiled as he beamed at the praise. "All right, how much is all this, Kota?" she asked. "All told it comes to 3,000 Ryo," he answered. "I am having 1 Ryo equals $1 Bachan, isn't that a little too much to just waste on me?" Naruto asked nervously. "Nonsense Naruto-chan. This is an investment for me to ensure you can protect yourself all the better when you become a ninja, besides I have plenty of money to spare," she replied as she waved off the blonde's concerns. After handing Kota the money for the merchandise, she sealed it all into a scroll and took Naruto's hand as they left the store. They walked along the streets of Konoha and Naruto noticed the direction they were headed. "Bachan, are we going to go see Hokage Jigi?" he asked. "Yes Naruto-chan. I want to ensure all the Senju clan treasures are transferred into a vault in my estate that can only be opened by you or I. They are very powerful and many people have sought to steal them over the years. But now that they belong to you, I want to ensure that only you could possibly access them," she told him. Naruto's eyes widened at that. He hadn't really considered it, but with him being heir to the clan, the Forbidden Scroll of Seals, the Raijin no Ken, all the Senju library and artifacts were his. Arriving at the tower, they began to ascend the stairs to his office. Hokage office. Sarutobi Hiruzen sighed to himself. There had been no sightings of Danzo, but his Anbu had stumbled upon an entrance leading to the root secret compound and found it empty except for about 40 children in varying degrees of neglect who had clearly begun being conditioned. That was not the only thing they found. They found roughly 180 root ninja dead, no other traces were left. By his estimation, he figured Danzo got wind of the hit out on him and decided to take only his most loyal and veteran root and kill the rest. The children weren't worth killing. If this was not enough, 6 Uchiha had been found dead, one of them being Uchiha Shisui. The most disturbing thing was he was informed that every single Uchiha killed had a fully matured Sharingan and both eyes missing. Except for Shisui, who was found by the Naka River with his right eye missing. He was broken from his musings by a knock on his door. With a holler of "Come in," the door opened to reveal his teammate and her grandson. Seeing them brought a smile to his face until he remembered that both she and his surrogate grandson seemed to delight in causing trouble for him. Koharu, and Naruto-kun. How can I help you?" he asked kindly as the two sat down. Koharu cleared her throat before speaking. "Well Hiruzen, I was reviewing some things last night and then I came across the security plans for the Senju clan artifacts, or lack thereof." She deadpanned at the end. Hiruzen started to sweat as he suspected what was going to come next wouldn't be pleasant. It would cause a lot of paperwork. "I was appalled at how lax the security is on such important items." "Yeah Gigi, your security sucks. I bet I can walk right in and take whatever I want and leave without anyone noticing." Naruto interrupted with a bold declaration. Koharu smiled at her grandson's antics. Hiruzen's sweat dropped with a sheepish chuckle because he couldn't exactly disagree. "So I would like to give you two options, Hiruzen. The first is that you ignore my warning and one or both are stolen, or two, me and Naruto-chan will take them to the place they are most secure at. We will move into what was meant to be our home when I was pregnant with his father, the Senju clan compound," she declared. Hiruzen sighed in relief as he had meant to ask her about moving into the compound. There were many scrolls there that could help train Naruto, as well as it being the most secure compound in the village. It could repel a boss summon successfully, so anyone they don't want getting in would. "I believe I like the sound of the second option," Hiruzen replied with wry grin. Koharu grinned back, and then looked at Naruto, who was cheering. Then Hiruzen pulled open his drawer and pulled out a scroll with the Senju clan crest on it. "This should hold all the items you want moved," Hiruzen told her as she took the scroll. "Now, is there anything else I can help you with?" Hiruzen asked. Koharu wasn't surprised Hiruzen could tell there was something else she wanted. Koharu gave a nod at her teammate's observational skills. "Yes, there is. I am concerned," she began, getting a raised eyebrow from Sarutobi and a confused look from Naruto. "Well, the Senju clan is a very prestigious and well-known clan, that alone would warrant an attempt to kidnap him if they knew there was an heir, simply to restart the clan in their village, if not just outright kill him," she stated, getting an understanding nod from Sarutobi. Naruto looked upset at either prospect. "And if knowledge of him wielding the Makuten, well, you saw what Kumo would do for bloodlines just yesterday," she finished. Sarutobi now had a look of concentration as he tried to think of all the outcomes and solutions. "I believe it would be smart to not let it become public knowledge until he is about to graduate the academy, the very last before making Shin'an," she supplied. Naruto didn't look too happy about not being able to tell everyone how kick-ass his family was. Hiruzen thought it was a good idea as well. "I find that a very reasonable request," the Sandaime replied. "Now Naruto, if you could step out, there are some things I would like your grandmother," he said as he turned to Naruto. Naruto nodded reluctantly and pouted. He waved to them before walking out. As soon as the door was closed, Sarutobi activated a privacy barrier. He looked at Koharu with a grim look. "There are several things you should know of. I will start with the simplest and least worrisome," he began, getting a nod from Koharu. "The Kumo ninja who attempted to kidnap Hyuga Hinata was not sent by the Raikage but rather the Kumo Civilian Council. It seems they wanted to have more bloodlines, especially the Byakugan. However, unlike his father, refused to resort to kidnapping like his father. He would not budge on this ever since he became Raikage, so they took advantage of the recent alliance treaty to pay off the ninja sent to deliver it. As such, I have no intentions of ending the alliance with Kumo, but rather trust that he will take care of this matter on his own accord. He always was one who didn't tolerate treachery, and this is a rather serious one," Sarutobi explained. Koharu nodded. It made sense. She had met the Raikage, and while he was a rather combative man, he was loyal to his comrades. "The next piece of information is worse. Danzo caught wind of the search, it seems. He appears to have fled Konoha with some of his route." What he was about to say was halted by Koharu's angry voice. "What? That bastard got away," she yelled in outrage. Sarutobi waited for her to calm down before he continued. "What is more, 6 Uchiha were found dead, one of which being Uchiha Shisui. All of them had a fully mature Sharingan, and all of them save for Shisui were missing both eyes. Shisui was only missing the right eye," Hiruzen told her. Koharu paled at this. It was well known Shisui's eyes were special even among Sharingan users. Then she remembered what eye was missing. "Wait, right eye? You think this is connected to Danzo, don't you?" she asked, although it was more of a statement. "Hi, I do. The timing is just too perfect for it to be a coincidence," he replied. Koharu grit her teeth in frustration. Then she remembered Naruto's smiling face and how it felt when he called her Bachan. She would let this go. Right now he needed her, and they were a family now, which is what mattered. Her thoughts now turned to the Senju clan artifacts, and she began to grin deviously as she got an idea. Say Hiruzen, Kumo, Raikages looked at the letter he had gotten from the Hokage earlier that day. That goddamned council had nearly ruined the alliance with Konoha, and could have started a war because of their greed and cause. They figured since his father didn't face any repercussions, they wouldn't either. The dumbasses didn't realize that the only reason he didn't face any was because they were already at war. Mabue. Get me the entire civilian council now, he shouted to his sexer, attractive assistant over the intercom. Hi Raikage-sama. She replied via intercom. As soon as I give the signal, come out and kill them all, stated to his invisible Anbu guards. It was a half hour before the council members started to file into his office. After the last one filed and the door closed and unknown to them a privacy barrier was activated, as well as one to prevent them from leaving. Looked the council over. They looked far too arrogant, as if they were humoring him with their presence instead of he demanding theirs. The council had been started to appease civilians who were irritated by all the militarization the village went through after the first Shinobi War, a mistake in his opinion. It started out good, with honest people simply wanting to help the village thrive. Now it had degenerated to fat greedy assholes. "Why did you ask for us, Reikage-sama?" The person in the front asked. "I ordered your presence because I just got a most interesting letter from the Hokage. He says he is the Kumo shinobi sent to deliver the treaty for him to sign in custody for attempting to kidnap the Hyuga clan heirs." He began, watching as they started to show unease at hearing that the shinobi was in custody. He says when they broke the prisoner he admitted to being paid by the U to kidnap the Hyuga heirs. Thankfully he was understanding enough to not end the alliance, understanding it was not by my orders, so we are safe there. Here he stopped as they seemed to be relieved thinking it was over. "However, I don't appreciate you giving any orders/missions to my shinobi, but when you do it for something like this, something that could have very well caused war between the Cloud and Leaf." He paused for dramatic effect as he enjoyed seeing them now visibly sweating. "Well, I call that treason, and you know how I deal with traitors. Anbu, execute them." He finished, yelling at the end. "We are the civilian council, you can't do tiak," one of them tried to shout before being silenced, followed closely by the rest of the council. A sighed in relief. They really dodged a bullet here. The Hokage stated in his letter that he trusted him to handle things on his end, which he did gladly. Konoha. The next day, Senju compound training grounds. Koharu watched Naruto doing his warm-ups with a smile. She let him do one more lap before calling him over. "Okay Naru-chan, before we start I want to know if you know how to access your chakra yet?" She told him. Upon receiving a nod she continued, "Good, now I want you to try and use your chakra to stick this leaf here to your forehead. Try to use as much as you can." She encouraged as she handed him the leaf. Doing as his grandmother told, he tried to stick the leaf to his forehead by using as much chakra as possible. The leaf blew away from his forehead and tore to pieces because of the force. Naruto looked dejected. Koharu however nodded in satisfaction. "Just as I suspected, he has massive reserves. Even this early I would guess he is more than most high-level jonin." She mused to herself. "Very good Naru-chan." She complimented. Naruto looked slightly better but still disappointed. "But I failed? How was that good?" he asked in confusion. "No you didn't. I wanted to test how much chakra you had. If I wanted you to make it stick I would have told you to find the right balance of chakra, not as much as you could," she informed him. Naruto was still confused. "So why did you want to know how much chakra I had?" he questioned. "I wanted to make sure you had enough to handle the jutsu I am about to teach you," she answered. Naruto looked ecstatic at learning a jutsu. "Now this jutsu is very useful. It's called Kage Bunshin no Jutsu 1. The shadow clone is an advanced clone technique, requires a lot of chakra to use it, however the benefits are great. You learn everything that the clones do. This is the gift I promised to give you. It will accelerate your training by leaps and bounds," she explained. Naruto's excitement increased at this. "Before you get carried away, we will not use this for anything but academics until you finish all the books I got you. They are the entire course of books in the academy curriculum. Until you finish them you will be restricted to physical and taijutsu training," she told him sternly. Naruto pouted at this. "Also you can only read one book at a time," she added. "Now here is the hand seal," she told him as she made a clone to go get the scroll with his books in them. After that they started his physical training where he was introduced to the wonderful world of resistance seals. The next 2 years were going to be hard. Time skip. 2 years later, Konoha Shinobi Academy. Children were rushing around in the courtyard. All were excited to start training to be shinobi. This class had the most promise in years. Why did it have so much promise? Easy, it was chock full of clan heirs. There was Shikamaru, a lazy boy who liked to watch clouds. He wore his hair in a pineapple style. Shikamaru was heir to the Nara clan. Then they had the Yamanaka heir Ino. She was a platinum blonde-haired girl who liked to gossip. Next was Choji, a chubby boy who loved food. He was heir to the Akimichi clan. There was also Aburame Shino, heir to the Aburame clan. He was a stoic boy who wore a long coat and dark sunglasses. From the Inuzuka clan was Kiba. He was a brash boy with feral features common in his clan. Next was the Hyuga clan, whose clan heir was the shy brunette Hinata. Hinata wasn't very good in her clan style, mostly because she didn't like to hurt people. The Uchiha had 2 heirs. The twins of the clan head, Sasuke and Satsuki. Sasuke was an arrogant child who believed he was the best because he was superior because he was an Uchiha elite. If only he knew that he was actually a commoner according to his clan. His duck-ass hairstyle didn't help. His sister Sayuri was a different matter altogether. She, unlike Sasuke, subscribed to her mother and older brother's views. She was nice and also humble, even though if someone were to be honest she had a lot more reason to be arrogant than Sasuke. She was smarter than him as well as more skilled in the clan-style taijutsu, plus she could already use the great fireball jutsu that made you a full member of the clan. All the heirs were standing with their families who were there to see them off as Naruto walked into the courtyard holding Koharu's hand. Naruto hadn't changed much over the past couple years except for being taller and growing his blonde hair out so it now could clearly be seen it grew like his grandfather Madara. It was chin-length with a bang that partially obscured his right eye. He still wore the high-collared black shirt with dark gray shorts and black ninja sandals. He had a kunai pouch taped to both legs. As they walked in, Koharu was telling Naruto her last goodbyes until the academy was out for the day. Now remember Naru-chan, I want you to do your best. If you get top score on the entrance exams today, I will have a training surprise for you when you get home. She promised with a smile. Naruto beamed at this. The last time he'd gotten a training surprise, it was a set of books on Fuinjutsu all the up to the expert level. There were 5 books per level, and 5 levels being beginner, moderate, intermediate, expert, and finally master, which actually consisted of 5 extra books. At the time he had been asking to be allowed to begin learning seals for a while. He was almost halfway through moderate level. Besides that, his training was mostly chakra control, taijutsu, weapons training. And after he had gotten good enough in chakra control he had begun learning the basics of genjutsu, which was 8 months ago. He was looking forward to starting the academy so he could kick all kinds of ass. The best part was that he didn't have to pay attention in the boring lectures they would give since he had read every book they had in the course, and also lots of scrolls and stuff on theory that supported and expanded on what they taught. Alright Naru-chan, have fun and make some friends. Koharu told him as she knelt down and hugged him. See you later Ba-chan, just you wait. I'll get a perfect score, he declared with his foxy grin. Koharu laughed at her grandson's antics. She kissed him on the forehead before standing up and leaving. Naruto waved after his Ba-chan. He felt a tinge of sadness. This would be the first time he didn't spend the day with her since he first met her in the hospital. He shrugged it off as a man dressed in standard Chunin attire with a really deep tan and a scar over his nose. He wore his brown hair in a pineapple style similar to that lazy-looking kid that he knew must be Inara. Beside him was a man with gray hair who wore his Hittite in a bandana style. He too was dressed in standard Chunin attire. Alright, everyone that has been assigned to classroom 401 come with us. The brown-haired one said. Several other teachers came out and said something similar. Once everyone else had gone inside, Naruto looked around casually. He then walked around the building while whistling casually. When he got there he put his foot on the side of the building and walked right up the side. Once he got to an open window on the 4th floor he jumped through it and sat down in a seat in the very back. He put his feet up on the desk and leaned back with his hands behind his head. He couldn't wait to see the teacher's expression when he saw he got here before everyone. A few minutes later the door slid in and the brown-haired one walked in while looking over his shoulder just as he was saying something. Take any seat you want and wait for roll call, he said. Already did that sensei, what took you so long? Naruto called cheekily. The Chunin whipped his head around along with the gray-haired one and blinked when they saw the onyx-eyed blonde sitting there casually kicking back in the back of the classroom. They did a good impression of Fish at that point. Yo, Naruto said with a wave, making the rest of the class, who had filed in behind the Chunin, sweat drop. How did you get up here so fast? The brown-haired one asked. Well, you see, it's a secret, he answered, getting a round of face faults. Once he was back up, the Chunin told everyone to sit down in their seats. A black-haired girl with black eyes walked up the steps and sat down next to him. He discreetly looked her over. She wore a blue high-collared tank top. She also wore some black shinobi pants tucked into black sandals. Her raven-colored hair fell to the bottom of her shoulder blades and held back in a ponytail that left 2 bangs framing her face. He could see a fan symbol on her back. Interesting, an Uchiha, and a fully fledged one at that. Pretty impressive at our age. Course I would be too if Ba-chan would let me learn elemental jutsu, he thought to himself. He shook his head slightly and took his feet off the desk and sat forward. Hey, I'm Uzumaki Naruto, future Hokage. Nice to meet you, he said as he looked at her with a smile and held out his hand. The girl hesitated as she looked at him. The boy had blonde hair that spiked outwards and a bang partially covering his right eye, speaking of which they were onyx like her own. He had 6 whisker marks on his cheeks and his face had less baby fat than most boys. He's cute, she thought with a slight blush. Uchiha Sayuri, nice to meet you Naruto, she said as she took his hand. He would have something back but an arrogant voice interrupted them. Hey! Don't speak to my sister. You're not worthy to associate with an Uchiha elite like us, said a duck-ass-haired boy with a blue shirt and white shorts. He noticed that he lacked the fan symbol. Naruto tried to ignore the boy as he noticed Sayuri had an embarrassed blush at her brother's actions. That idiot with his and Tosan's elite attitude. She thought as she took note of the fact Naruto was ignoring her brother, but not in the trying to avoid trouble way, but the way that said it was pointless to acknowledge the annoyance because he wasn't any kind of threat. Annoyed with the blonde, in his mind, Dobi, ignoring him and elite. Hey, did you hear me? We Uchiha elite don't associate with the likes of you, so stay away from her, Dobi, he said belligerently. Naruto simple turned his head and blinked owlishly. Then he burst out laughing. What's so funny, Dobe? Sasuke asked. Ha ha ha, oh, just the fact that you are calling me Dobe and yet we haven't even taken the entrance ranking exam yet, which means if anyone is a Dobe it's you for not knowing that there isn't a Dobe yet, Naruto laughed. When she heard this, Sayuri started giggling as well. It felt good to see someone put her brother in her place. Naruto then got a mischievous gleam in his eyes, as he figured he would drive one more point home. But that is not all. I also was amused at the fact I know more about your clan's laws than you, the Uchiha clan heir do. If you knew them like you should, you'd know you are not even a fully fledged Uchiha, let alone an elite yet, like your sister here who is a fully fledged member. Naruto finished with a grin. Sayuri was surprised at his knowledge her clan's laws. She decided to find out more later. After that, Sasuke stomped back to his seat and sat down with a dark scowl on his face. Sayuri sighed at his behavior. He used to be nice. That was before he decided he wanted to be like their father and started to act just like him. A few minutes later, Iruka began calling roll. After that was done, he started to explain the test. This is the written portion of the entrance ranking exam. The rest will consist of weapons accuracy and a taijutsu spar. He told them. Alright, Mizuki-san here will pass out the tests, then after they are all passed out you have 45 minutes to complete it, after which I will grade them while you go to lunch, then we come back for the physical portion. He informed them as Mizuki took the papers and began passing them out. Something one should know is Mizuki was one of the 3% of the village who disliked Naruto cause he knew he was the Kyuubi's container, or as he preferred demon brat. He saw this as the perfect opportunity to mess up his education by putting a genjutsu on Naruto's test so it appeared to be an Anbu level test. He handed Naruto his test with an internal malicious grin. His plan worked perfectly until, oi asshat, what are you trying to pull? You think I can't recognize a genjutsu when I see one? My bachan's the Kami damn Sakaku no Megami 1 bitch. I've been put in better illusions for not cleaning my room. True story, Naruto shouted with indignant rage. Meanwhile the rest of the class froze, either from the shock of what Mizuki tried to do, Naruto's language, or both. Quickly walking up the steps, Iruka grabs the test. He gains a grim expression as he looks at it. Mizuki, you better have an explanation, he stated dangerously with narrowed eyes. He knew exactly why Mizuki tried this, and he was pissed. Ha ha ha, good job Naruto, you caught me, I was testing your observation skills, he chuckled as he rubbed the back of his head nervously. I call bullshit. No one else has a non-B level test. Naruto shot back. Iruka coughed. Language Naruto, he cried. What of my language? Naruto asked. Less colorful. Iruka ordered. Okay, was his reply. Now as for you Mizuki, Iruka began. I'll let him go Iruka-sensei, I don't mind, it was worth the amusement of seeing his reaction to being caught. Naruto interrupted. Fine, now everyone sit down and shut up, Iruka cried in frustration. Everyone including Mizuki and Naruto sweat dropped. He and Naruto were the only ones talking. After that it wasn't long until the test began. Naruto flipped it over and looked at the first of 25 questions. You've got to be joking me? This is all they're asking? He thought as he looked at the first few questions. 1. How many Hokages have there been? 2. How many shinobi wars have there been? 3. How many different ninja arts are there? 4. What are jutsu? This is gonna be easy, Naruto thought. He quickly began jotting down the answers and was done in 10 minutes. He walked down the stairs to Iruka's desk and handed him the test. Iruka frowned, thinking Naruto didn't know the answers. However, when he turned it over, all the answer spaces were full. Curious, he began to grade the answers. His curiosity became shock as he graded all the questions and found that they were all correct down to the most little detail. Granted, they weren't exactly hard, but they required you to at least have studied the first book beforehand. Naruto's were textbook. Naruto simply went back to his seat and put his head down to sleep. Sayuri, who was sitting next to him, sweat dropped. Soon after Naruto finished, Shikamaru got up and dropped off his paper as well. He soon followed Naruto's lead and put his head down to sleep. 45 minutes went by and eventually everyone had turned in their tests. Alright everyone, while you go to lunch I will grade whatever tests I didn't get to yet. Eat well because when you come back we begin the physical portion. He he told them. Everyone began to file out of the classroom slowly. Naruto and Satsuki were the last to leave the room and were walking next to each other. Satsuki was glancing at him out of the corner of her eye. She had to admit it was nice to meet someone who treated her like anyone else, instead of fawning over her like most people did. It didn't hurt that he knocked her obnoxious brother down a peg. "Hey Naruto-san, you want to eat lunch with me?" she asked. She wanted to talk to him some more and this was the perfect opportunity. "Sure, follow me, I know an awesome place to sit and eat our lunches," he declared as he took her hand and began running towards the stairs. Sayuri blushed at the contact but quickly got over it. They went up another flight of stairs with the sound of their sandals making the thunk of sandal on wood constantly. Finally they came to a door and Naruto pushed it open and stepped through, dragging her with him. Once they were through the door it became clear they were on the roof. Naruto went to the bench at the end of the walkway and sat down. He took a scroll out from his pouch and applied some chakra to it. In a puff of smoke a bento appeared. At this point Sayuri's stomach made itself known by growling loudly. She blushed in embarrassment as she realized she left her bento at home in her excitement. Naruto looked at her as his onyx eyes twinkled with mirth. "Forgot your lunch didn't you?" he asked/stated. Sayuri blushed in embarrassment but nodded her head nonetheless. "Lucky for you I packed an extra bento today in case I made a friend and they forgot lunch," Naruto said as he set the bento on the other side of the bench and took out another bento from the scroll which he kept for himself. He motioned for Sayuri to take the other one. She sat down and picked up the lunch and opened. Wordlessly she broke apart the chopsticks and began eating. Nothing was said for a few minutes until Naruto broke the silence. "So you said you wanted to talk. What about?" he asked her curiously. Sayuri poked at her food with her chopsticks for about 15 seconds before she spoke. "You said Sasuke didn't even understand our clan's laws. What did you mean by that?" "Sure, he forgot about the fireball test but that doesn't mean he doesn't know our laws. Also you sound as if you know a lot about the Uchiha clan. Is there anything you could tell me they don't teach us as children?" Sayuri asked shyly. "Well, I'll deal with the easiest first. The fact you have no idea what I meant makes it clear it's not so much don't know, but that the people teaching you your clan's laws and history are actually actively misinforming you to make the clan seem more important." Naruto began, getting a confused look from Sayuri. Naruto saw it and decided to clarify. "What I mean is there is actually no members of the true Uchiha clan left in your clan," Naruto stated. "What do you mean? I'm right here aren't I?" Sayuri asked slightly angry. "Well, that didn't come out how I meant it to. I'll tell you the reason I say this goes back to the early part of the wars between the Uchiha and Senju. There were so few members at the time they were on the brink of extinction, less than 15 members each. To solve this they each gathered up a couple hundred commoners and performed a blood ritual to turn the commoners into Uchiha. Well, half Uchiha, their blood was a lot less potent, and there were differences in between the two. The most noticeable is the potency and keenness of the Sharingan. Anyways, the point is that through the ages the Uchiha kept very close records of who was and who wasn't a descendant of the original Uchiha. It's generally accepted that this is simply because of the laws of your clan that make it very clear, if there is a pure-blood Uchiha, they are the heir. The current clan head can continue until the heir is 18, at which time they must step down. However, I always thought it was for a different reason. I'm not sure what, but I just have a feeling." Naruto took a pause to think over what to say next. "So there is the story of the origins, and the reason that I say they are misinforming you, because the last documented pure-blood Uchiha was not too long ago. Sundai Meiji even met him," Naruto stated. "Who is it?" Sayuri asked in complete rapture from the information. "A name I'm sure you know well, Uchiha Madara." Naruto told her with a hidden smirk at what he expected her reaction. He wasn't disappointed. Sayuri's jaw dropped, her eyes widened and she involuntarily started to shudder. The Uchiha's most notorious missing nin, the man who challenged Senju Hashirama to a fight for the title Hokage. He was the last true Uchiha. What? That traitor was the last pure-blood Uchiha? She practically screamed at him. Naruto frowned at hearing her call his grandfather a traitor. He was not. Madara had been tricked. He was told that he had the support of the Uchiha to challenge him. Someone even framed him for summoning the Kyuubi, and he figured it was no coincidence that the father of the current clan head was the one to take the title almost immediately after Madara betrayed Hashirama. I swear Gigi someday they will know the truth, and the pretenders will be seen for what they are. Naruto vowed in his thoughts. Anyways, my point was after that the Uchiha, like Sasuke, started claiming themselves elites. The reason it only happened after Madara was gone, is because that was originally a term used to describe a pure-blood descendant. So all those claiming they are elites now are nothing but pretenders. Sasuke will never truly be an Uchiha elite. That is what I found so funny earlier. The title he is so proud of is forever out of his reach and he is completely ignorant to it. Naruto finished with a hearty chuckle. Well, there is one way, but I would never tell him that. He would probably do it just so he could be a real Uchiha. Naruto thought. Meanwhile, Sayuri was giggling hysterically at this. She knew her Kasan and Nisan were right. Well, we better get back to class, Naruto said as he stood up and began walking to the stairs. Sayuri quickly followed. Classroom 401. Everyone was finally back in the class and sat down with Iruka standing in the front of class. Okay, follow me out to the training field, he said before walking out of the classroom. Sayuri was about to follow the others, but Naruto held her back. Come on, my way will be funnier, he said as the last person left. He grabbed her and carried her bridal style over to the window, getting an eep from her. He jumped through the open window and clung to the wall using chakra. He calmly walked down the side of the building with the terrified girl clinging to him. When they got to the ground, they were already in the training ground, so he set her down. Sayuri was blushing from how he carried her, and they walked to the center of the training ground in silence. It was 5 minutes later Iruka showed up with the rest of the class. Hey, what took you so long, sensei? Naruto asked with a cheeky grin. Iruka gained a tick mark on his forehead. Naruto. He ground out. Yo, how do you do that? Iruka yelled. Naruto motioned for him to lean closer, which Iruka did. It's a secret, Naruto said in a loud whisper so all could hear. The class minus Sasuke left at this interaction. Iruka struggled to regain his composure. Okay class, the first part is the weapon's accuracy. Remember, you're not supposed to have to get it perfect. This is just a gauge where everyone is as far as skill. Iruka explained. When I call your name, come forward and throw the shuriken and kunai provided. There are a total of 5 each. Iruka instructed as he began to read names. The civilian kids did poor while the clan heirs did better. Shino, Shikamaru, Kiba, and Choji all scored 7 to 10. Ino and A/Hinata scored a 5 to 10. Sasuke was the best so far as he scored 8 to 10. He had thrown all of them at once, which impressed most of the class, and it was at this point the males found out that somehow he had developed a fan club over lunch. All of them were screeching at how awesome their Sasuke-kun was. The most loud was a bright pink-haired one near the front with a large forehead. Sasuke seemed smug at his accomplishment as he figured no one would score better than him. Oh, how wrong he was. Uchiha Sayuri. Iruka called. Sayuri walked forward from where she had been standing with Naruto and picked up projectiles. She, like Sasuke, threw all at once, except different from him, she hit 9 to 10, and while he hadn't even hit the edge of the targets with his misses, she hit on the edge of the fake human cutout. Sasuke started brooding as he saw he would now have the second best score. He was once again wrong. Meanwhile, Naruto was loudly congratulating Sayuri for getting such a high score. Very good, Sayuri. Now last is Uzumaki Naruto. Iruka called. Naruto grinned as he passed Sayuri on his way to the line in front of the target. Once he got there, he picked up the projectiles and immediately noticed there was something off. These are twice as heavy as they should be, not to mention dull. Gee, I wonder who prepared these ones? He thought as he glanced over to a grinning Mizuki who had a malicious gleam in his eyes. Naruto had an inward smirk as he got an idea. Hey Iruka-sensei, these feel off, can I use my own shuriken and kunai? Naruto asked as he turned back to Iruka. Sure, I guess. He replied, confused. Meanwhile, Mizuki was seething at his plan being ruined once again. Naruto quickly took out the projectiles and threw them all at once. All of them moved at great speeds towards the targets and landed 10 satisfying clunks as all 10 projectiles hit dead center in the targets on the cutout's forehead. Iruka and the male's jaws dropped at him, getting a perfect score. Meanwhile, Naruto heard a sound that had him shivering in fear, and filled him with dread. Eek! Go Naruto-kun, you're the best. I love you, Naruto-kun. Back off, he's mine. Naruto was pale as a ghost as he realized he had fangirls. Iruka sympathized with Naruto's plight as he saw the look of horror on his face. Quick, Naruto dashed back to his spot next to Sayuri. This had the bad effect of making all his fangirls glare at her for stealing their Naruto-kun. Okay, with that we will head over to the taijutsu ring where we will have you face off, girls against girls and boys against boys. Boys, he told them as he continued walking with the gravel crunching underneath his sandals. The students followed except for Naruto, who held Satsuki back as well. How in the hell are we getting there early this time? She asked resignedly. Naruto flashed her a grin. Like this, he replied as he grabbed her shoulder and performed a Shunshin no Jutsu 3 to the taijutsu area, which was a good 4 minutes away at the pace Iruka had been going. The Shunshin was a jutsu his grandmother drilled into his head because she wanted him to have a way to get to her quickly if there was an emergency. They arrived in a swirl of leaves and Sayuri felt a slight rush in her head from the speed. A few minutes later and Iruka arrived with the rest, but he didn't know Naruto and Sayuri were there yet. Yo Iruka-sensei, how's it going? Naruto asked cheerfully. Iruka once again had a tick mark. He tried hard to keep from shouting. So tempting. Aw, fuck it. He took a deep breath and, seriously, how the hell do you keep doing that? He yelled in frustration. Once again Naruto motioned to lean closer, and he did it. Again, it's a secret, Naruto said in a loud whisper once more. Iruka face faulted and the entire class minus Sasuke was laughing at the teacher falling for that twice. Iruka got up and calmed himself before he began to explain. Alright, the first matches. None of the matches were that good until the clan heirs started going. Kiba and Shino went at it and both showed aptitude, however Kiba won because his family focused more on taijutsu. The next was Hinata versus the pink-haired Banshee as Naruto dubbed her. It wasn't much of a fight. Seeing how her opponent appeared to be shy and timid, the Banshee declared how she would win to impress Sasuke-kun. She charged blindly with a fist cocked back and Hinata quickly used some Juokin to completely disable her, leaving the Banshee, who Naruto heard was called Sakura when Iruka-sensei went to help her, humiliated and nearly crying. Sayuri faced Hino and utterly decimated her using the interceptor fist. Finally there was only 2 left and Naruto was itching to go so he could show his stuff. Okay, the last match will be Uchiha Sasuke against Uzumaki Naruto, he declared. Naruto walked over to his side where he stood and waited with his hands in his pocket and a lazy expression. He knew exactly how to get under Sasuke's skin so he would make mistakes right from the beginning. Sasuke stepped to the opposite side and had an arrogant sneer on his face. Ready to lose, Dobi? He asked in a tone laced with arrogance. Again, these tests are designed to rank us, so there is no Dobi yet, and also I scored higher than you in the accuracy, and since we don't know the written grades yet that puts me at an advantage. Naruto explained in a voice that one would use with a slow-witted person. As soon as Iruka called to start, Sasuke charged at Naruto with an enraged roar. Naruto watched Sasuke coming into him. He was going very slow. He waited till the very last second when Sasuke's fist was about an inch from his face. He dodged his head to the side and planted a knee in Sasuke's gut. At this point Sasuke was unable to believe he had gotten caught like that. Before he could ponder any further, Naruto used a chop to the back of his neck to knock him out. Naruto sighed as he had hoped for more of a challenge. If only he could have fought Satsuki, maybe then he would have gotten a good match. He turned around and walked back to where Sayuri was standing and couldn't help but smirk as he saw she looked amused at seeing her brother get taken down so easily after all his boasting. Winner Uzumaki Naruto, Iruka said, slightly stunned at how fast that was. With that the class began to walk back inside. This time Naruto decided to just do it with the rest of the class. Mizuki ended up carrying Sasuke back to class as he was still out cold. The classroom. Once they were back in the classroom and everyone sat down, Iruka cleared his throat. Okay, now that we've done all 3 tests I am going to announce the rankings, Iruka told them. Naruto paid no attention to the names till they got to number 3. And in 3rd place is Uchiha Sasuke, Iruka announced, getting shrieks of protest from his fangirls that he was number 1. Sasuke meanwhile had a dark scowl on his face, not believing not 1 but 2 people scored better than him. Number 2 is Uchiha Sayuri, Iruka declared. Sayuri smiled at that as she didn't mind being second. She had a good hunch who was first. Naruto patted her on the back in congratulations, telling her how awesome she was. And finally number 1 with a perfect score is Uzumaki Naruto. Congratulations, now that's all for today, I will see you tomorrow, Iruka said with a smile. Naruto got up all the while smiling hugely. He looked at Sayuri who had just gotten up as well. They walked outside together where Naruto saw his grandmother waiting, and Sayuri's family was there as well. Naruto turned to Sayuri and grinned. See you tomorrow, he said. Yeah, I guess so. Say Naruto, why do you seem so excited to be going? She asked in curiosity. Because my Bachan promised me a surprise with my training if I got a perfect score in the test. I can't wait to see what it is. He replied in excitement. I suppose so, I wish I had something like that to look forward to, she said. Well, isn't your mom like some famous S-rank kunoichi? Why not ask if she could teach you something? Naruto asked curiously. Sayuri perked up at this. Her mother would teach her something. With a smile she said thank you and ran over to her family, more specifically her mother, and began talking to her excitedly. Meanwhile Naruto ran to his grandmother. With the Uchihas, Mikoto was having a normal day. She had been retired from being a kunoichi when the twins were born, so she had a pretty normal life now. She was excited to see how her children did on their first day. Sasuke had already come out and opted to speak to his father instead of her. They were standing a few feet away speaking in whispers. Fugaku seemed upset, so she figured he didn't do as good as Fugaku expected. She looked back towards the door and saw her daughter walk out next to a blonde boy with hair that spiked outwards and a bang partially covering his right eye. For some reason he looked familiar to her. Her daughter and the blonde were talking, and she noticed he seemed very excited as he spoke to her daughter about something. Sayuri looked slightly depressed and said something to the blonde. The blonde said something back and then her daughter looked excited as she noticed they had been looking over at her. Wonder what that's about? She thought. Her daughter seemed to say goodbye and then came running towards her, the blonde boy running off as well. Her daughter arrived with an excited smile. Hello Satsuki-chan. How was your day? You seem a bit excited, she said. It was cool. I met this boy Naruto. He's cool. He knows a lot about the clans, and he's really strong too. He got first place, I got second, but the really funny thing was when he sparred against Sasuke. He beat him like it was nothing, and even after Sasuke went through that whole, ready to lose thing and all. Sayuri told her in an excited voice. Meanwhile, as soon as she heard the name Naruto, Mikoto was only half listening, as she looked over to the blonde-haired boy. I wonder, she thought. Then the boy turned their way and she looked into his eyes and noted for the first time that they were onyx-colored, an odd color for blondes. And Naruto kept doing this funny thing to mess with Iruka-sensei by getting there before everyone else, and then telling sensei how slow he was. Sayuri told her with laughter in her voice. That cinched it for Mikoto. He was definitely who she thought he was. His mother liked to rile up the teachers as well. Pulling her attention back to her daughter, she laughed at what she told her. He sounds like a nice boy. Is he the blonde you came out with, the one with the whisker marks? She asked. Getting a nod, she gave a sly smirk. So has my little girl got a crush on the first day? She asked in a teasing voice. Sayuri blushed madly at her mother's question and tried to glare. Keiko-san, it's not like that, he's just my friend. She denied. Okay, well what were you talking about? Mikoto asked curiously. At this, Sayuri forgot all her embarrassment and got her excited look back. Oh yeah, he was telling me how his bot-chan promised him a training surprise if he did good today, and I told him how I wished I had something like that. Then he reminded me you were an S-rank kunoichi and suggested I ask you to teach me, so will you train me from now on, Ka-san? Sayuri finished with a question. Mikoto was surprised and touched that one of her children wanted her to teach them. She smiled at her daughter. Of course Sayuri-chan, she answered. With Naruto and Koharu. Hello Naru-chan, how was your day? Koharu asked warmly as Naruto ran up and hugged her. It was awesome Ba-chan. I met this cool girl named Sayuri and I got a perfect score, so can we go train now? He said, slightly begging at the end. Koharu chuckled as she heard her grandson speak excitedly, although she took special note of the part about a girl. A girl you say, was she the one you came out with? Koharu asked as they both looked over to the Uchihas. Yep, now can we go to the training ground? Naruto asked slightly impatiently. Alright, come on Naru-chan. Koharu conceded as she took his hand and they began to head back to the Senju compound. Senju compound, training ground. Koharu a few feet in front of her grandson who was trying and failing to control his enthusiasm. She smiled fondly at him. In the past 2 years since they began training he had not once complained about the training that would give a Chunin pause. Even after doing grueling workouts for 6 hours, mention something new and he was right back to being full of energy. Okay Naru-chan, today I am going to explain elemental affinities. She began. What I mean by this is that we ninja can use chakra to control the elements, however we are each born with an affinity towards at least one affinity, some have more than one. She explained. Now the reason I said affinities for you is because we know you have at least 2, however this could simply have been because of the Makuten gene in your blood activating, meaning the affinities that make it up were simply added to the 1 or ones, as it may be, that you were born with. She told him. Now Naruto was really excited. He could have more than just 2 affinities? He could have 3 or even 4. So how do we test my affinities Ba-chan? He asked. With this. She answered as she took out a couple pieces of paper. This is chakra paper. You channel chakra into it and it shows your affinity. She explained as she took one of them and handed it to him. It shows you by its reaction. If it burns it's fire, if it crinkles it's lightning, if it becomes damp it's water, crumbles it's earth, finally if it slices it's wind. She told him as she channeled chakra into the paper. The paper split 3-way. The first part burned, the second got damp, and the third crumbled a little bit. As you can see my primary affinity is to fire, while I also developed secondary affinities to water and earth, she said. Naruto was happy at this since she could help him with his own water and earth affinities. Now you try, she urged. He immediately channeled his chakra to the paper and the result was unexpected. First it crumpled into a ball the size of a golf ball, then the ball had 3 different reactions, 1/3 burned practically to ashes. Another became extremely soggy, and the last crumbled away into tiny flakes. Well, that is interesting. It would appear originally you had an lightning affinity comparable to Toby-kun's water affinity, and an unusually strong fur affinity, not quite as strong as the lightning, but still very high nonetheless. Finally the expected water and earth affinities which are slightly stronger than normal, but nowhere near your originals, which proves my theory they are purely from your Makuten gene. Koharu mused. Well, make me 80 shadow clones, 20 to practice each affinity, she commanded. Time skip, 2 years, Konoha streets, near clan districts. Naruto was walking back to his clan's compound, which was ironically right on the other side of the lake near the Uchiha compound. Ironic because the clans were once bitter enemies and now were neighbors. So it was understandable that as he was walking back from the shinobi store to get some new cloths and also some supplies for sealing, of which he had now advanced to the intermediate level, almost at the end of said level. He was enjoying the night and reflecting on the past 2 years since the academy started. In the 2 years Sayuri had become his best friend and they were still ranked as they were at the beginning, which meant if it continued he would be Rookie of the Year and she would be Kunoichi of the Year, putting them in the same squad, which would be awesome in his opinion. He then thought about her brother, the twin that is. Sasuke was in one word, an asshole. His attitude never changed, he constantly put others down and then sulked when someone was better than him at something, which with him and Sayuri in class was just about everything. Sayuri had continued training with her mother and in the 2 years had awakened her Sharingan, which infuriated Sasuke since now he was the only one of his siblings to not have awakened it. Anyways, she had become very skilled in Katen Jutsu, as well as becoming pretty proficient in Genjutsu. That along with learning the Kawarimi no Jutsu 4, she was turning into a mini Mikado. Naruto then remembered meeting Mikado for the first time. It was interesting since his mother was her best friend, and vice versa. Flashback, 1 year and 10 months ago. Naruto and Sayuri were training in one of the training grounds for academy students. They were having a taijutsu spar. They thought they were alone but little did they know there was someone watching them, interested in seeing them in action. Sayuri came at Naruto with the Sharingan blazing in her eyes. She moved to strike with an high kick but he ducked down. She responded by attempting to kick him in the face with the other foot. Naruto however caught it. He then went to punch her in the gut but suddenly she disappeared and a log was in her place. On instinct he turned to find her about to stab him with a kunai. Reacting on pure adrenaline and muscle memory he slipped into his best style of taijutsu to counter it, the interceptor fist. Sayuri was so surprised to see him use it that she ended up having her momentum used against her and landed on her back from an arm toss. She immediately jumped to her feet and stormed up to him furious. She wanted to know how he knew her clan's taijutsu form. That wasn't the reaction of one who had seen it in action and decided to replicate it and was trying it out. No, that was the reaction of someone who had worked at it for years and was very good in it. How? She began in a pissed off tone, ominously quiet. Naruto got nervous at this as he knew he needed a good explanation, otherwise he was in it deep. How do you know my clan's taijutsu style? She screamed. Naruto was fumbling for an excuse when they suddenly heard laughter from the edge of the clearing. That's easy, Sayuri-chan. He knows it because his mother was an Uchiha. Isn't that right, Naruto-kun? Said a laughing Mikado as she came out of the tree line. She was dressed in training clothes consisting of a high-collar black shirt with the Uchiha crest on it, and black hanbu pants. Hi, that's right, but how did you know who my mother was? Naruto asked cautiously. Yeah, I want to know this well, Ka-san. Sayuri put in. She had calmed when she learned his mother was an Uchiha. She would have left him scrolls with the forms. As to why he wasn't a member of the clan she had no idea. Mikado laughed slightly. Well, I should hope I could figure out if someone was my best friend's son. Although I must admit, it took a few things to make me absolutely sure. The first clue was your name, as she was always fond of Jiraiya-sama's first book, and said if she had a son she would name him after the main character. The second clue was your talent for pranking and annoying the teachers, but what really sealed it was your eyes and the way your hair grows out, just like your grandfather. She told him. This got two reactions. One was of shock at the fact she was a friend of his mother's and also because she knew who his Uchiha grandfather was. The second reaction was of confusion from her daughter. Why, you were a friend of my mother's? And you know who my grandfather was? He asked in shock. Well, let's sit down so we can talk. She replied as she sat on the ground with the other two doing the same in front of her. The answer is yes, she was my friend. My best friend, as I said. Mikado giggled. Okay, but how do you know who my grandfather was? He asked, slightly suspicious. Before she would answer, Sayuri cut in. I don't get it. Why does it matter how she knows who your grandfather is? Is it some big secret? Sayuri asked. First off, it matters because of how few actually know, as well as because of who he was. Second, yes, it is a very big secret. Third, how I know is because I met him a couple times before he died. In fact, I was one of the ones to help bury him, along with her teammates. Mikado replied. This caused Naruto to get even more shocked at this as he remembered his mother mentioning her best friend helping with the burial. I don't get it. Who was his mother, and for that matter who was his grandfather? Sayuri questioned. Well, Naruto-kun's mother was Konoha's Karasu no Oho, Uchiha Hitomi. As for his grandfather, she was interrupted by Naruto holding his hand up as he wanted to be the one to tell her. I've actually told you about him before, well, in an indirect way. He was part of the first story I told you. Naruto told her. Sayuri racked her brain to think of that story and who it might be. Then she remembered a particular part of the story. He was the last documented pure-blood Uchiha. Last documented pure-blood Uchiha. Uchiha Madara, she said breathlessly. Then she did something unexpected. She laughed. What's so funny? Naruto asked, slightly annoyed. Ha ha ha, I just finally realized why it ticked you off so much that Sasuke was claiming to be an elite. She laughed. He couldn't help but chuckle sheepishly as he rubbed the back of his head. Mikado started to giggle as well. After that they spent some time talking before they finally went their separate ways. Flashback end. Naruto was broken out of his trip down memory lane when he noticed something odd. He was passing the Uchiha compound but there weren't any lights. Before he could ponder further he heard a scream from within the compound. Quickly using a trick his bot-chan taught him, he searched for any particularly large chakra signatures. He immediately sensed one, as well as a much smaller one that was very familiar nonetheless. He used a sunshine to appear where they were and was just in time to prevent something that pissed him off. Inside the compound, 10 minutes ago, while Naruto was meandering around, an Anbu wearing a crow mask had just finished cutting down the final Uchiha besides his family. He knew that 2 out of 4 were home and his Imoto was most likely running terrified through the streets right now based on when she usually got home. His brother wouldn't be far behind. He took off his mask, revealing himself to be Uchiha Itachi. He put the mask on his belt and then sunshined into his house, outside of the dojo. He slid the door open and his silhouette was framed in the doorway dramatically as his shadow was cast across the room. There were 2 occupants in it and they appeared to have been in an argument a few moments ago. His father was the first to speak. Itachi, what is the meaning of this? He shouted. Itachi simply blurred forward and stabbed his tando into his father's chest. Quickly he pulled it out and moved forward, stabbing his mother through the heart, or so he thought, until she burst into a flock of crows. Then he felt a kunai at his neck. Did you forget who taught you Sochi? Mikado asked. Indeed I did not, although I had hoped time had dulled your skills. Itachi replied. No it hasn't, she exclaimed as she spun and blocked the tanto with the kunai. The Itachi behind her burst into a flock of crows. Impressive, even without the Sharingan you saw through it. Itachi replied. After that he disappeared in a puff of smoke. Then Mikado's chest. Once again she burst into a flock of crows. This disturbed Itachi greatly as she shouldn't have been able to detect it was a clone. Then it hit him like a slap in the face. Of course, he muttered before pulsing his chakra just in time to see a kunai going towards his chest. He deftly knocked it away and moved inside her guard, stabbing her through the stomach. This time nothing else happened. He knew she was as good as dead, so he simply yanked out the blade and caught her before gently lowering her to the ground. I'm sorry it had to be this way, he whispered. He then stood up. But then he felt a hand grip his ankle. He looked down to see his mother gripping his ankle tightly. Please, don't hurt Sayuri, she pleaded as she sensed her daughter entering the house. I'm sorry, but there can be only one survivor. There can be only one, he replied. He then turned to face the door where a stunned Sayuri had just burst through. For a moment she was shocked, until she saw the dead body of her father. That didn't bother her much, however the heaving body of her mother did. She saw the blood slowly spreading. She screamed at the top of her lungs. Itachi cursed himself for not acting immediately. He lunged forward to try to finish her before Sasuke arrived. His blade thrust forward, to be blocked by a kunai. He looked down to receive a huge shock. It was a boy that was about 4 feet 6 inches, an inch taller than his sister, who was tall for her age. The boy had blonde hair that was chin length and spiked outwards with a bang partially obscuring his right eye. He had 6 whisker marks on his cheeks with a face with less baby fat than normal. But the fact that the boy had blocked the kunai that shocked him. No, it was that the boy had clearly arrived in a sunshine, and reacted fast enough to block the attack, which was going at high Genon speeds. The boy's onyx eyes were hardened and held a rage in them fit to burn the world. You mind explaining what's going on here, Itachi-san? He asked in a voice of barely restrained anger. Yes I do, Itachi replied. Naruto saw the signs of him going to activate his Sharingan, so he created a seal-less cage bunshine with orders given beforehand. Itachi didn't notice that as his Sharingan blazed to life and then spun rapidly until it blurred together to take the shape of a tri-pointed shuriken. Tsukuyomi, Itachi whispered. World of Tsukuyomi. Suddenly Naruto was drawn into a world where the sky was red and everything else was black. He was currently tied to a cross and Itachi was standing in front of him. This is the world. Itachi began, only to be interrupted by the now apparently amused Naruto. Of Tsukuyomi, I know. The Mangekyo Sharingan. Itachi, you have been a bad boy, haven't you, Itachi? Naruto asked with a chuckle despite the situation. How? Itachi asked in a rare show of emotion as his voice and face showed shock. Then Naruto received the memories of the clone hidden behind the door who had knocked out Sasuke as soon as he entered the room. So tell me why you tried to kill Sayuri-chan. We both know you have plenty of time in this world, Naruto said casually. His calmness even knowing what he was in, unnerved, yes unnerved Itachi. You certainly are interesting. I suppose you would be her friend Naruto, she speaks frequently of you. I am of the opinion she has a crush on you, Itachi stated, secretly amused at the blush that appeared briefly. But as to the why, it is very simple. I wanted to test my capacity, and to prove myself to a masked man who is a Sharingan. He claimed himself to be Uchiha Madara. With the strength he showed, I don't see any other person he could be besides Madara. I mean to keep Sasuke alive to come seek revenge for our clans. He was interrupted when he heard Naruto chuckling, which soon turned to laughter as he threw his head back and laughed to the skies. What is it that amuses you so? Itachi asked, seemingly curious of this. Oh, hey, it's just the fact you actually bought that masked guy's bullshit about being Madara. Just because he was more powerful than you, I thought you were a genius. Tell me, did he reveal the secret to obtaining the EMS? About taking another's eyes? Naruto chuckled. Itachi was confused when he saw that Naruto was truly amused at him believing the man, and it was the kind of amuse that you get when you know someone is being made a fool of. As for the last questions, he nodded to confirm what Naruto said. What do you know? He asked. I know for certain that the masked man is not Uchiha Madara. Naruto answered in an amused tone, but holding in serious undertone. But how do you know? Itachi asked in frustration. Naruto secretly grinned. It was all going to plan. I know because my mother buried him. Come to think of it, your mother did as well, along with my mother's teammates. Matter of fact, she even met him a few times before he died, Naruto said in a musing voice. Itachi's eyes widened in shock. His mother had met Uchiha Madara? She'd buried him? But that left the question of why she had even known or buried him. Right now you're no doubt wondering why she and the others helped bury him. The answer is very simple. My mother was too heartbroken at the time to be able to bury her father on her own, and being his daughter she had introduced her most trusted friends to him, of course. Naruto answered. You could practically feel Itachi's brain overloading. Indeed, it was Itachi's was confused, he was disoriented, and thus his control slipped over Tsukuyomi. Quick as a flash, Naruto snapped his head up with his 3 Tomoe Sharingan blazing and stared right into Itachi's wide eyes. Wait, her fa was all he got out before Naruto's Sharingan shifted into another form. Itachi thought it was Naruto's Mangekyo form. It was a black background with 4 red flower petals overlaid with a red 4-sided shuriken with red circles in place of point, all connected to a thin red ring on the outside edge. However, Naruto proved him wrong when he next spoke. This is my mother, Uchiha Hitomi's eternal Mangekyo Sharingan. It's in my eye because it is a reaction she inlaid into my eyes. To protect myself during extreme circumstances, it allows me to use her Kodo Amatsukami a total of 7 times until the failsafe is all used up. Naruto explained. Itachi's mind was still too chaotic to react in time to try and stop it. Now, your mind is mine. Kodo Amatsukami, Naruto declared. Itachi's mind went blank as Naruto gained control and started implanting false memories with his words. You completed your mission, all Uchihas except Uchiha Sasuke are dead. However, the masked man is not Uchiha Madara, your mother buried him, so it is impossible. Now you will continue as you planned. However, you will discreetly as possible seek the true identity of the masked man. When we leave this world you will immediately leave, Naruto commanded. With that he willed them to return to the regular world. Real world. As soon as they returned to the real world, Itachi shined away and Naruto gave a sigh of relief. That was too close. He had no idea if that would work. It was pure luck. With Itachi having the Mangekyo Sharingan, there was a good possibility he could have resisted, which is why he had to get Itachi's mind as chaotic as possible before he attempted to control him. It was then that he remembered that Sayuri-chan had been crying, and Mikoto-chan was hurt. Naruto then turned to Sayuri and looked at her as she cried over her mother who was struggling to breath. His heart ached as he didn't want Mikoto to die either. Well, there is that jutsu, but it has possibilities of side effects. Guess I will ask them, he thought to himself. He walked over and knelt next to Mikoto right beside Sayuri. I have a jutsu that could save you, Mikoto-chan. But it has risks. Naruto told her seriously. Wow, what does IED do? Mikoto asked. It's the second step of the blood ritual made to turn your ancestors into Uchiha. It needs a pure blood to be the medium as well as 2 half-blood targets. A little of the pure blood's DNA mixes with that of the 2 half-bloods, then divides the result and splits it into the 2 half-bloods, essentially making them pure bloods. The changes occurring during the process would heal you. However, there is a reason it was never used. There are varied reactions to the jutsu, not unpleasant, just strange, plus a pure blood can only use it a few times in their life, so you must be certain you want me to use it. Naruto told her, and Sayuri, since she had to be the other half-blood. Okay then, let's do it, if it will save Kasan. Sayuri declared. Mikoto looked at her with wide eyes. "Sayuri-chan, are you sure?" she asked uncertainly. Sayuri simply nodded in confirmation. As soon as he saw that Naruto took the kunai and made a light gash on Sayuri's arm before beginning a long and complicated set of hand seals that had been drilled into his head by his mother. It took him 4 minutes of precious time before he finished. As soon as he did, he immediately made a cut on both palms and placed them over Mikoto and Sayuri's respective wounds. There was a blue glow that came from the sites of contact. For 10 minutes they simply sat waiting as the changes happened. Over that time the females had been surrounded by a blue light. After 15 minutes since it began, the light faded and it left him able to see the two girls. For that's what they were. Sayuri looked the same, however Mikoto was a different story. Before she had been 38 but looked 30. Now she looked to be about 17 if he had to guess. Her bust and backside were the same, which made him blush thinking about it. However, her waist, which had gotten just a little bit thicker over the years and after 2 times of giving birth, now it was very slender again, like he imagined it was before that. It appeared one of the side effects was aging. He figured most likely it's because the DNA needed to integrate more with her since it had to try harder to repair the damage done by Itachi's Tanto. The girls looked around slowly as Mikoto sat up and looked at Sayuri. Sayuri looked blankly at her mother. She slowly pointed at her. "You look young now," she said dumbly. "You're not the best choice of words." Mikoto gained an angry tick mark. "Are you implying I looked old before?" she asked in a sickly sweet voice. Sayuri quickly backpedaled as she realized her mistake. No, you don't understand. I meant you look like 17 or something," Sayuri said. Mikoto smiled at that. "Oh, okay, wait, what, 17? she asked. Naruto wordlessly passed her a kunai to look at her reflection in. Mikoto saw herself at 17 staring back at her. "I suppose this is one of the side effects?" she asked. "Yep," Naruto replied. "Shockingly, I can live with it," she joked. Naruto smiled at this. "Well, I guess we should go see Gigi and tell him what happened," Naruto suggested. "I'm afraid he probably already knows," Mikoto stated with a depressed sigh. "Why would you say that, Kasan?" asked Sayuri. "Because the Uchiha were planning a coup d'etat. I tried getting Fugaku to see reason that it wasn't going to work, but he refused to listen. It would have commenced soon. Itachi probably volunteered for the task when the idea was brought up. The little fool also probably decided to leave Sasuke alive to have him seek revenge," Mikoto told them. They were shocked to hear that the Uchiha planned something like that, and agreed with the result that occurred. "I wonder how shocked Itachi will be when he finds out that you two are alive and he failed the mission technically. Why doesn't he know about it?" Mikoto asked in confusion. "Well, I got him hooked wanting a piece of info I had, then tricked him into torturing me for it so it would awaken my Mangekyo. My mom set up another trap in my eyes to allow me to use the Koto Amatsukami 3 times prior to getting the EMS. To use for really hard situations, it only became available when I had awakened my Mangekyo, so I made him do just that," Naruto explained. Mikoto made a no sound as she realized what happened. "So what did you make him believe?" she asked, with Sayuri paying close attention. "I made him think he simply tortured me and then completed his objectives, but since he let slip about a masked man claiming to be my grandfather, who I assume is the one who tried to do that to my father, I implanted suggestions to make sure he should be cautious with him and that he was not Uchiha Madara," he told them. "So do you have any idea who the man is?" Sayuri asked. "No, but I now know for sure it's a half-blood. He told Itachi he way for him to avoid going blind and to obtain the EMS he had to do what he, Uchiha Madara, did, take a sibling's Mangekyo eyes and implant them. Only the half-bloods who didn't know about the advantages of being pure blood was," he explained. "Well, like you said, let's go see Hokage-sama," Mikoto said as they stood up. Naruto made a cage bunshine to carry Sasuke. That's the end. I hope you guys enjoyed it.